Okay, I think we're gonna start. Um, very formally. There's some people here. Some people are gonna be. I feel like this is a casual come and go situation in the sense of like, we just started. So welcome everyone who's here. My name is Ann Foster. I'm the host of Vulgar History.
Was that the pause where you're like, what's the name of my
Yes,
podcast? Okay.
yes. Vulgar History Podcast. And this is my first ever live stream, not just that I've engineered myself, but that I've ever been on. So, um, good vibes all around. Anyway, I'm doing this because I recently just had the 100th episode of my podcast, and I thought, well, actually, no. I was like, how should we celebrate? And I asked on Instagram, and some people were like, you should do a live show. And I was like, well, I live in Saskatoon, so like 6 people can come to that. But
You could have done it in front of the talking Christmas tree in the mall.
No, that's
that
that's Halifax.
that's Halifax.
It's close enough to you.
My second home. No, I could have done it in front of the creepy Christmas mannequins is where I could have done it.
Well, I'm doing it in front of creepy mannequins, so that's like basically.
So
the
there
same.
are creepy mannequins are a vibe. Yes. Anyway, but then someone was like, did you know that you can do live events online? And I was like, oh, can you? So here we all are, muddling our way through this live stream. There is a chat. Actually, I'll introduce everybody. So first of all, I'm Ann Foster, the host of the podcast. With me, I'm just going to go how it is on my screen. Allison Epstein, can you introduce who you are?
Hello, yes. I am Allison Epstein. I'm a historical fiction writer based in Chicago. And if you listen to Vulgar History, you may remember me from such gems as Lola Montez, or This Asshole Napoleon Bonaparte, or Catalina de Arauso. I am an enthusiast of historical dirtbags, and I come in when someone really, really sucks on the Vulgar History list of characters, so I can yell about them. And it brings me great joy. Happy to be here. And I will introduce our next and third panelist, which is Lana Wood Johnson. Would you like to tell us all about you?
Hi, I'm Lana Wood Johnson. I am an author of young adult contemporary novels, which, even though they're young adult and they're contemporary, they do have a weird amount of history in them. I am the token representative for non European history, despite the fact that I do, in fact, have a European history degree. And um, I also am Anne's general purpose tech nerd, so I help with things.
Speaking
And
of,
I will. Oh, you may know me from the CC episode where I am the world's biggest CC fangirl. And soon you will know much about me because I thought I was related to Mary Queen of Scots as a teenager, so I may know a bit about that.
yeah, so Allison and Lana have both made appearances on Vulgar History, like the main podcast, but we also do Vulgar Piece Theater, which is a thing on Patreon. So about every month or so, we talk about costume dramas together. And Allison and Lana are both going to be making appearances this season coming up of Vulgar History because we're starting a new season on Wednesday, Mary Queen of Scots season.
Get
There's
excited.
something about Mary Queen of Scots. I'm really excited.
I'm so jazzed. I've been looking forward to this one for like actual years. We keep telling it. Like, when's the
Yeah.
Mary Queen of Scots season? So
I had to be ready. I had to have a game plan. There's a lot to say.
You have to be
Um,
good at podcasting.
I had
and
to
now
like
that
really
you're
get my skills going.
an international podcast superstar, it's time. It's time.
No, exactly. I wanted to mention so there is a chat on this. Lana is the chat overseer as the tech guru.
So be nice.
Yeah, so you can chat. I'm just gonna like post on Twitter the new link because some people are like, I can't get in, apparently. So why don't you start? So we usually start Vulgar Piece Theater episodes. I mean, heads up. This could be the movie itself is 2 hours and 20 minutes long, and this is gonna be at least that long, knowing how this goes. So
The only thing we haven't talked longer than was Mozart.
yeah.
Because that was the longest movie I've ever watched in my life. So
Yeah. Yeah. So we usually start by introducing ourselves, our experience with the movie and or the subject matter. So if why don't you start with that, Allison, and I'm gonna go let the Twitter people know where to find us.
go tell the people. Yes. So I had never seen this movie before. Lady Jane I know many of the actors from other things, which is exciting because on previous episodes of Vulgar Piece History, I have not known either the movie or the people in it, and that has made it very hard to follow. But this time I knew where we were going. I know a fair amount about this time in history. My first published novel was set in like the Elizabethan era, so this is just like immediately pre that, but lots of the same like political stuff going on, and I think this is a like the Tudor era, like is kind of for listeners of this podcast, that's one of the touchstones that a lot of folks have in common. So I kind of knew where we were going. I've listened to the Jane Grey season that Anne helpfully put together for me to remind me who everybody was. So I have some info, but mostly I was just here to be like, okay, I know what the story is and I know how the story ends. How are they going to make me extremely upset on the way there? And they did. They did.
They were so mean to Jean-Luc Picard.
Patrick
Lana, do
Stewart.
you
Oh,
want to
sorry.
yell about
Sorry.
that?
Before you talk about that, Lana, I need to make an apology to everyone because I did say when I was promoting this live stream that we're talking about Lady Jane the movie, and I incorrectly thought Patrick Stewart wore a wig in this movie. He does not. He's which makes it a bit more distressing.
Because
His
it looks
character.
just like, oh, that's beloved friend of mine, personal friend Patrick Stewart.
Yeah.
Whew, not being a good person.
I know it's like Jean-Luc Picard. What are you doing? Jean-Luc
Heavens!
Picard, don't do that.
You beat me to children.
I literally had to watch a Picard episode afterwards to wash the taste out of my brain.
It was weird, and also it's interesting because it was set in a time period where, like, if this was set 100 years later, he would have had a wig because everyone would have had a wig, but this was a non-man wearing wig era. So he just looks like the head and neck of Captain Picard and then the body of just, like, awful person. But and then anyway, so yeah, sorry, Lana, I wanted to just let everybody know I did falsely advertise that Patrick Stewart wears a wig in this movie. He does not.
And if they would merely watch I Claudius with me, we could then talk about a movie where Patrick Stewart has a wig.
I
But they
think that's the
won't.
only
You
thing
would
he's
pick
ever
it.
done in a toupee.
That he did his screen test for Jean-Luc Picard in a toupee, and they made the right choice there.
Yes.
Okay. So, my experience with this movie is that I watched it in the 80s, 90s when it was on TV, and I was obsessed with it for the entire length of time I was watching it, and then I promptly forgot everything about it other than like I have a understanding of this time period. I know who Lady Jane Grey is. I know that stuff, but mostly I at 16 I too was a sheltered religious zealot with controlling parents who read too many books. So I identified with this a little bit too much as a teenager and again as an adult. So yeah, it was definitely a movie.
It reminds me of your like Lady Jane in this movie played by Helen Bonham Carter,
Literal infant. Literal child.
2 apples tall.
Unrecognizable.
Little
Unrecognizable
squeaky voice.
until her hair is in her face. And then once her
Yeah.
hair is in her face, it's like, oh, Helena Bonham Carter.
Yeah. But so she's like played by little infant Helena Bonham Carter with a big Jane Eyre vibe, I would say.
Yes.
Which I know is another character that Lana has strong feelings about.
Very, very strong feelings. Historical, but still beloved.
And so myself, I chose this movie. The three of us alternate who chooses a movie when we're doing these episodes. And it just occurred to me, I'm like, oh, we haven't done this one. And I remember watching it as a teenager. It was just like I remember randomly it was on TV some weekend afternoon when I was like 16. And I was like, oh, what's this? And I kind of had heard the name Lady Jane Grey and I knew like she was a 9 Days Queen, but I didn't know the story. And I watched it and I just remember being riveted. And it's like ever since then, like the Jane Guildford love story, I'm pleased to say, is still good. And I think we'll talk about the historical accuracy of that, but
Oh yes.
in this movie, I like the relationship still. And I remember just being so loving them, loving the love story, enjoying this movie, and I haven't watched it in years and years and years and years. So it was interesting to watch it now. Like I certainly haven't watched it since I did the whole season about Lady Jane Grey, which was interesting to watch it. Although what we're going to do is we're going to like walk our way through the movie based on a summary of the movie that I did in which I know very few people's names. Despite the fact I did
Normal.
yeah. In the movies we watch, no one ever says each other's names.
It
But,
also
like
helps that Anne, who I'm sure will say this as we get into it, has selective male face blindness. So
Yes.
that makes films a little hard for us sometimes because she doesn't know their
yeah.
names, and also they all look the same to her.
Well, and they always do per movie, like, in this one, they all have beards. It's like there's Patrick Stewart, there's Carrie Elways, and then there's, like, all these beard guys, and that's all the other male characters. Um So yeah, anyway, I watched the movie. I felt very strongly. I still very much enjoyed it. It was weird how there's like specific moments. I'm like, oh, she's about to burst out giggling, and I'm like, why do I remember that? Like, I, I remember the music of it, although that might be because it's the exact soundtrack of The Princess Bride mixed with Shakespeare in Love,
Yeah.
which both came after this. So, um, I don't know. The much like Shakespeare in Love, the music, the score of this is just like what 6 notes over and over and
Repeatedly.
over.
It was okay, thank you for saying it because I was like, "Am I having an auditory stroke? What is happening?"
There's a motif that repeats.
That is a gentle word for what it is.
But similar to Shakespeare in Love. So we're gonna dive into the discussion of the movie. Lana, is there anything you want to share from the chat? Are people chatting?
We have someone joining us from Ireland.
The Irish Tits Out Brigade. I have real love for them, and I have something coming for them.
Several people that this is their first Vulgar Piece theater, so welcome.
For as long as you can stick with us.
We love you. We're sorry.
We're
This
glad you're here.
Strap in.
Yeah. So Ireland, I don't know. I'm excited that there's people. It's like very late at night / early in the morning there. So I love that you're there. But I've got real strong feelings about Ireland. And I really look forward to what did I post about? I've been doing TikToks all month for Women's History Month in a real chaotic way. Somebody described my TikToks as kind of like a drive-by pie being thrown in your face, which is what they are. They're each 15 seconds long because that's all I could figure out to do. And now I've got a rhythm going where I just like describe the life of a woman I've talked about on the podcast in 15 seconds. And at the end, I go, Women's History Month. And so I did one about Lola Montez, and all I could say was like, this is Lola Montez. She was actually born in Ireland. She pretended to be from Spain, the Hilaria Baldwin of her era. Women's History Month. And then someone from Ireland posted like, she must be from Galway or something.
That is amazing.
Like,
all right, I'm getting more people from more places. Like they're telling me where they're from. So we
where
have
are they from?
Someone from Tennessee, someone from Peru, the land of the llamas.
Peru,
which was my nickname in high school. Llama.
Llama.
Lana. Llama.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say your nickname was
They were
Land of the
very
Llamas.
creative in high school. Detroit, Michigan.
All right.
Nebraska or something. I don't know. Sorry, from Iowa. Gotta.
Infighting among the Americans. Edmonton, Canada.
Yes.
Yeah.
South Carolina. Halifax. And
yes.
home.
Yeah.
SoCal, Seattle, Ottawa, Pennsylvania.
I want to say about South Carolina. That was where the Scottish people went on Outlander, I think.
Oh.
Yeah.
You've got real international lesson here. That's exciting.
I'm also Anne's American history / geography coach.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot I don't know about American history in Lana, and also Habsburgs. Those are things that Lana helps explain to me.
Habsburgs in American history. Germany. I can explain Germany.
I can't. And I will not learn.
Oh my god. No, it's been like a real steep learning curve. Oh, North Carolina.
They went to North Carolina.
Thank you.
People that are fans of your show also know things about Outlander. Who would have guessed?
Can you imagine what that Venn diagram looks like?
Yeah.
And they're asking us to talk about rain, but I won't. So
here's the thing about
we're trying as hard as we can.
Here's the thing about Rain, the TV show that was on the CW several years ago about Mary Queen of Scots, and is the reason why I love Mary Queen of Scots so much, and is the greatest TV show of all time to me.
Lana got up and left the live stream.
we all respect each other's likes and dislikes. Oh,
This is why I like Mary Queen of Scots,
yeah.
and this is why I am afraid of rain.
No, and I respect and understand that and appreciate that. And what I will say is that I am planning to do a Rain special episode, with a special Rain guest star who I used to recap Rain for a TV website talking about fashion, and my co-writer on that has agreed to come and just do like a Rain episode with me. Why were we talking? Oh, someone said what they want us to do, and Lana has set out her conditions, which are basically she'll maybe watch Rain if it's like a live stream event for charity, perhaps.
Yes.
So perhaps that will happen one day, and those are her guidelines, and I respect it.
We'll see how well we do on this live stream.
We're learning. This is a learning experience for us.
It's a learning experience. We're all
Also,
just
your
here from
echo is back.
my echo.
You sound okay to me.
Oh, well, I'm hearing it then.
Let me ask the
I don't know
chat.
if-
Chat,
the
is there an
chat-
echo?
Chat, are you hearing an echo? Or am I just, hearing things?
Yeah, let Lana know in the chat.
Please.
I've got fancy earphones in, and that might
Yep,
be fucking
definitely
things
an
up.
echo.
People hear an echo?
Yeah, so do whatever that fancy thing you did before you turned us off and turned us back on again.
I think what I did was I left. I don't know what happens if I
You
leave.
said you were going to turn our echo off on the settings.
Yeah, no, the echo cancellation is on. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take out my headphones and unattach my headphones and see what that does.
Oh, they're Bluetooth?
It's time.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I can hear
Can
you.
you hear me?
Is there an
I can
echo?
no longer hear the echo.
There's no more. Okay.
Oh, wait. A little bit.
There is an echo?
It's less.
There's still an echo.
Yeah, but it's way less.
Okay. There's nothing else I can unplug.
Don't worry about it. We're good.
This is
We're
enough.
good.
We'll live with it.
It's good enough.
We're good? We're good? Is the chat good? Chat, are you good?
Well, someone didn't even notice the echo. So
Okay.
Oh, they don't notice it now. So it's just me being a little bit obsessive. Not that I ever do that.
Okay.
We've never heard of such a thing.
I will reveal to everybody that I was wearing fancy headphones because I have nice hair. And I was like, I can't put over the ear headphones on over this blowout I got today. So I'll wear these like weird headphones, and clearly vanity got in the way of things. Okay, so what
We're
I'm going
all
to
good
do.
Officially according to the chat.
The chat says
Thank you,
we're good.
chat.
Actually, can you guys talk to the chat for a minute? I'm gonna get like other headphones.
Okay. Anne's going to take care of us. It's going to be great.
Mhm.
So let me see if there's anything else. Okay, so we have someone who said, Anne can't hear this now, so I'm going to save that for a second. Somebody said rain was amazing.
They're right,
Person's
and
right.
Lana can
Okay,
understand.
so Anne, you can hear me.
Yeah.
After your episode about Flora McDonald and with their ancestry, someone is now convinced that they're related.
McDonald, I think I'm related, honestly. I have Scottish. She had a lot of sons. Laura.
She had a lot of
sons. No, because I was reading the biography and I was like, wait, am I descended from her? But even the biography doesn't know exactly what happened to all of her sons.
Well, ancestry. So now I gotta look.
No, Lana, I looked at the ancestry you did. Okay, wait.
So I'm not related to a McDonald. That would never happen.
What I will say is there was a lot of McDonalds who came over from Scotland in that era. And there was a lot of McDonald's in Scotland in that era. So a lot of the people from Scotland who came over were also called McDonald's. But honestly, I bet you are descended from her because she was cool, and you're obviously cool because you listen to this podcast. So.
I'm McAlpine. We are a cadet branch of the Stuart line, which is how all of my relatives are absolutely convinced that we're descended of Mary Queen of Scots.
Okay, here's what I have to say.
You can't be.
Lana. So I've only just started researching the Mary Queen of Scots season, and everybody has the last name Stewart. Like,
Mhm.
the Stewart Kings were fucking
Yeah.
everybody.
Oh yeah.
Hence
Ev
all of the problems. If they would just stop, none of this would have
everybody
happened.
Some
everybody
of
has the
them
last
weren't
name
creating
Stewart,
children, but
but not with
yeah,
the person
Stuart.
who they should be.
Well, and it's also you're also reading a lot of biased history about like the lairds of that era. But no, there were a lot of Stuarts. There still are a lot of Stuarts. They're just not from all from that line
I have stopped
officially.
clicking on their Wikipedia pages to see how they're related to anyone because I can't my little
It's
brain
too
can't
much.
handle it.
It's
Yeah.
It's
it's
too much.
it's it's a family group. You just it's they're related somehow. They get the cachet of the name.
Okay, so
Um
I need to say, I
yeah.
glanced over at the summary for Lady Jane, which, by the way, we are now 32 minutes into the live stream and have not even started yet. So
Yeah.
classic
This
Vulgar
is
That's not
Face
even
Theater
our record.
situation.
that's
No,
not
That's
but
not
like
even
right.
our record.
what I brought this up to say is the very first line in this summary is where I'm going to derail us entirely because Anne likes
Okay.
to share the cast and crew and the creative team behind these movies because very often there's something interesting for us to know
Oh
there.
no.
And
Oh
this
no, I
time,
see it.
the director of Lady Jane is Trevor Nunn, where right underneath that it says parentheses Cats, the stage show. And I didn't know that. And I'm delighted and pleased to be here now.
Well,
So
at first
great.
I was like, "Wait, Cats the movie?" Then I'm like, "No, Cats the movie
No,
was
we
the guy who did
already
Lady."
watched one by the
That's
guy
what I
from
thought.
Cats the movie.
Yeah. Yeah. So
And never
the
again.
the
Nope.
director of this movie is Trevor Nunn. So he was like the founder or the whatever in charge of the Royal Shakespeare Company in England. And so he directed I don't know, he did like a lot of big theater shows is mostly what he's done. He did a couple movies, this is one of them. And he was the director of the original Cats. That was him.
Can you imagine? We're watching Lady Jane and then magical Mr. Mistopheles just prances in through the background. That would have really drastically improved my experience for this film.
No, I
It would
cannot
have been
imagine.
if maybe when she was in prison, sort of like Alice Cinderella, she had like little animal
She
friends
just starts singing
come
"Memory"
cheer her
all
up.
alone in the moonlight when she's in
That
her
would
little
actually
prison
fit.
cell. Mhm.
There's other interesting
I know
connections.
that
So
song.
the
I got
movie
that
was
reference.
Memory.
Yeah.
We're gonna get into other musicals. So I'll say right now that the costumes were by Sue Blaine, who is credited for doing the original costumes for the Rocky Horror Show. So before it was the movie, it was a play called the Rocky Horror Show. It feels so weird to say it without picture. And she did the costumes for those. And then they made a movie, and the movie costumes were based on her stage costumes. So that's who she is. So she knows her shit, Sue
She's
Blaine.
branching out with this
She
because
did
there is
an
nothing.
amazing
Yeah.
job.
I want to say, so do you remember? We've talked about costumes in every movie, but this is like, I feel like you've got Trevor Nunn from the Royal Shakespeare Company. It's like, okay, we're doing a movie in England about the Tudor era. Like, we have every costume. We have all of the costumes. Like, he's got his like Royal Shakespeare Company costumes. They've got every movie that's ever filmed in England about this era, which is thousands. The costume. So it reminded me if we watched Amadeus, which was like also from the 80s, where they were just kind of like, there's not really costumes from this era. So let's just like piece together some ribbons, I guess.
Here's a giant unicorn head. Put this on.
Here's your corset. It's like literally from, I don't know, H&M. But
And if we make the cape longer, it will hide more.
But this movie is like the costumes. I'm like, I feel like this is literally a portrait I've seen of Mary the First and stuff. Like these costumes are like spot on. So Sue Blaine, hats off. My bedtime hat off, but we'll get to that.
We will.
Allison has a real thing for hats, and there are some hats in this movie, and I'm excited to talk about them with her.
Anne brings notes, Lana brings historical facts, and I bring enthusiasm, mostly on the hat variety.
Well, it's about hats and capes. Oh,
Mhm.
yes, just so everybody knows as well, if you stick around for this whole thing, which like God knows how long this is going to be, at the end we do always score the movies as well. And what are the categories, Lana?
I knew you were going to ask me that as soon as you said it, and I'm not prepared.
You're the
I am
statistician.
prepared.
So there's
I
okay,
actually have a whole database now.
yeah.
Okay, so there is the first score is Cape Billowing, which was inspired by Mozart, which is costumes, the use of
Costumes in general.
costumes,
Yeah.
costumes as
Mhm.
character. um, The second is accent work, which includes your ability to sing, your ability to keep rhythm and meter.
Yeah, Les Mis did not do well
Did
in this
not score
category.
well on this
Nor
category.
did Cyrano.
I've truly blocked that one out of my brain.
But in terms of like positive accent work, Newsies had some excellent old-timey New York accents. Yeah.
Cheese it, the
Excellent.
bulls are here.
Never
points.
fear, Brooklyn's here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So accent work just includes all vocal performance. Yeah.
And then historical audacity, which can be both positive. All of these can be both positive and negative, but especially historical audacity. You can have a very, very high score in a positive way, or a very, very high score in a negative way.
So like
Or
A
you can have
Knight's
neutral
Tale.
score that makes us more sad than ever.
Like A Knight's Tale is a good example of historical audacity, but in a good way. Like that movie didn't try to be historically accurate. Like it opens with a crowd of peasants at a joust singing "We Will Rock You" by Queen. Like they're going for it. They went for it. They got there. It was perfect. But then historical audacity where it's bad. And I mean it'll be interesting conversation about this film. But I can't think of a historical audacity that was bad. But like it could be bad.
No, we
Or
had
if they
several.
could have made it they could have been more audacious, but they weren't. Like if people are too close to history, sometimes that makes it bad. It's like you could have been more audacious.
Or if you're audacious in a way that just like misrepresents the history in a way, like which is
In a
I
bad
think
way.
partly what we're gonna try to talk about in this one once we get into it. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll see.
Well,
But at the moment,
yes, Cyrano, the Girl King, and Anastasia all had negative horse historical audacity vibes.
Anastasia is actually a fantastic example for negative historical audacity. Yeah.
yeah. Which, if you want to learn more about that, join the Patreon. Listen to that episode.
Listen
But
to our
basically,
3-hour Anastasia.
listen to Allison talk about Rasputin for 2 hours.
Yes.
Les Mis is our only truly zero on historical audacity, which means we hated it more than those other movies.
Yeah.
Because
And so currently the highest score is Knight's Tale, right? That's the best in all the categories. And the lowest score is
Les Mis.
Les Mis, yeah.
Which is
I
why
suggested both of those films.
when you do our averages, Allison has 2 of the top 5, but has the top score, but she also has the lowest score, and she has the lowest average.
And I regret nothing.
I have the other 2 of the top 3. But then I also have Dinklage's Cyrano. So Anne is our like middle.
I'm the median. I'm the median. Although I am the one who
Very
brought
consistent.
in Queen Margot and all of those severed limbs.
Which still got an 18.
Limbs.
There was so many nude limbs.
Why were they all naked? Where did the clothes go from all of the dead bodies in that film?
I think we discussed that in the podcast. The costumer didn't have enough costumes for that many extras. So they were nude in the orgy scene, and then when they were dead in a different circumstance, still nude. Because
it was a lot.
And that was the one where my husband came in only at the very, 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 very end. And he's like, is she taking his head?
I will say I was startled to learn that one of my most beloved films, Queen Margot, is in fact very distressing to most people.
We
Anyway,
also have one more category, and that's Vibes, which is a catch-all. Vibes is like that. But was it a movie that you liked? Like, were you here for it?
Were there vibes? And some of the movies just don't. Like Cyrano,
no vibes.
No vibes. I had so much potential. Still mad at that.
I think Peter Dinklage could play Cyrano in another movie that is good.
And
that wasn't written by his girlfriend.
But that was not that movie. So this movie is written by stories by Chris Bryant, written by David Edgar. And I wrote down, so Chris Bryant, who came up with the story idea, he also wrote a 1991 TV movie called Young Catherine about Catherine the Great, starring Juliette Binoche and Vanessa Redgrave.
Put that one on the list of things I'll make you watch.
Which sounds...
but not on... You guys, the list that we have for movies that we want to watch is really in the 30s at this point. So
Yeah,
you're stuck
it's
with us.
yeah. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna just so everybody who hasn't done this. Although actually, sorry, does the chat have anything to share before we get into the like summary of the movie?
Um, Only that hats and capes are good,
Yeah,
See? My people.
which just means you're in the right place.
yeah, yeah. And this movie has I don't know about capes, but definitely cloaks.
Pantaloons.
Cloaks and hats.
Pantaloons
Yes!
are as good as.
There
Oh,
are numerous pantaloon moments in this film.
I'm
Oh, they're
I'm
Um,
the
so
only one who has
real.
successfully given us both pantaloons and capes. So
so the first movie that we did for Vulgar Piece Theater before we had the scoring categories was Shakespeare in Love, where if you haven't seen it, Joseph Fiennes spends half that movie running, like sprinting down oldie time streets in the most voluminous pantaloons, and they're just like flapping in the breeze. Like the pantaloons work in that movie was. Oh, and then there's the part in that where Gwyneth Paltrow in disguise as a man is wearing these little like Daisy Duke short pantaloons. Like,
They are outstanding.
but this movie, I will say, is probably the best pantaloons we've seen since then.
Yes. It's been a while.
So what we're gonna do is I have a summary of the movie, and I'm gonna go through it, and then Lana and Allison will interject with thoughts and feelings.
so many
So,
feelings.
so like every movie that we've done, it starts with a except for Amadeus. This starts with sort of a preamble explaining like here is where and when we are in time. So this one's and it's using the same font as every movie set in the Tudor era. It's like Tudor font. Henry VIII died in 1547. He left the throne of England to his only son Edward, and his country deeply divided between Catholic and Protestant. Edward was 9 years old, so the country was ruled by his uncle, the Duke of Somerset. But in 1552, the good Duke was removed for
Was he a good
Alexius.
duke, Anne?
Who was he, is my question.
Right. Because I feel like the good duke to anybody. I don't know if I've ever known of a good duke, so that felt like
I
editorial
don't know
liability maybe,
anyone by their
but
title names. Lana, who is that?
Oh,
Duke
give
of
me a
Somerset.
second.
Chat, do you know?
I didn't think to look this stuff up.
Has someone recently listened to my podcast? An important thing to know is that I have recorded a lot of podcasts and I don't remember a lot of things I've talked about. But also, I don't remember things about men, especially, and this movie does it a lot. They're all like, there's a part at the end where they're like, oh, the Duke of Northumberland did this. And everyone's like, oh no. I'm like, which one is that?
okay,
Is that
Anne,
Patrick
here's
Stewart?
what
Edward
I
Seymour.
learned. Edward Seymour.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Edward
that's what I
Seymour.
thought. Like, it was one of the Seymour brothers who was like, "Ooh, I'm gonna finagle my way into here to take all of the power from my sister's kid." Like, I dick, as I recall. But I
I
guess
think
he's
that
the
this,
good duke now.
well,
Well,
he's
I
not because
mean,
he's being executed.
Okay, well, fuck
executed.
him is really what I'm saying here.
and
Also,
I
Anne,
absolutely love that the chat did know the answer to that.
Did they? What
love
does the
it.
chat
I
say?
Love
forgot
it.
to look there. I forgot
Edward
that I
Seymour?
had help this time.
Yeah. Chat is quicker than Google.
Mhm.
Um,
It's true.
Thank you, chat. Okay, so it says the good duke was removed. ... Cut to a guy, presumably the good duke, being beheaded in front of a crowd, akin to the Knight's Tale peasants, but this time, unlike in the Knight's Tale, where they're just like the cheeriest, happiest peasants in the world, just like there for a good time. Here, the peasants are angry. They're angry peasants, and there's Queen Margot levels of numbers of peasants. There's, I feel like 900 people. There's
Sizable cast.
They've got a lot of extras. So they're mad. But they're not mad at the Duke being beheaded. They're yelling, "Set him free! Save him!" I know this because I had closed captions on. So honestly, I don't know what that scene is about. And then a man with a beard looks on. Cut 2. The beard man. He's indoors. He's looking distraught. He's talking to another man, also with a beard. And the beard man number
This is
2.
This is the Duke of Northumberland, played by
Okay,
one John Wood.
sorry. Is this Papa D? Is this?
Yeah, this is Papa. This is John
Papa
Dudley.
D.
As I was writing my notes,
Daddy
eventually they do
Dudley?
reveal that this is Mr. Dudley Sr., the father of Guilford Dudley and Robert Dudley, and I was just like, oh, Papa D. And then suddenly, for the rest of my notes, I just call him Papa D. And he is the villain of this movie.
Which you know because he's the Duke of Northumberland. And in every Shakespeare play that was ever written, you see the Duke of Northumberland, and you're like, bet he's going to be the villain, and then he is. It happens like 5 or 6 times. Never trust
Oh my god, he is literally like, there's a lot of shitty people in this movie, and he is the
on
villain of
that
the movie.
list.
Like, yeah. He is, on paper, the villain of the movie. So, Papa D. So, he literally pulls out you know what? And thank you. He pulls out a scroll that is the family tree of the Tudors, and he's like, "Here's what's going on." So
Does he
And
just
the
pick
audience is
one?
like, thank you for bringing the family tree here, just in case. This
he
is a thing I'm
honestly,
sure you do all the time.
I mean, I
he's like,
do that, but I have it on my phone and it's in my
yeah,
Ancestry app. Like, that's easy. I don't know how like, that's
He's
a
like, I
choice
bet
on
and
you
his
people are
part.
going to be confused. Let me have this extremely streamlined family tree with exactly 6 names on it.
very, very streamlined. Like, the Tudor family tree has so many
I
more
was like,
names, and
We're
it's
missing some circles in here, my man.
yeah, but he's like, "Here's the deal. Henry VIII had his sister. She married the King of Scotland, and then he, like, crosses her off." He's like, "So her kids won't inherit." But it's like,
And
then it's
Mary
Edward.
Stewart in the background is like, fuck you very much.
he's
Yeah,
like,
Give me
bet.
100 years.
yeah. So he crosses her off, and then it's like, and here's Edward, and then it's like Mary and Elizabeth, but like they're kind of like disinherited. And he's like, but then King Henry VIII's youngest sister Mary, and her daughter is Frances. And I did an episode of the podcast about Frances, and I like that in this movie they make her be a character because I think she's not often ever talked about. But she's one of the main characters in this movie, Frances, and her daughter is Lady Jane. They're like, and her daughter Jane, and then they're like, well, who? And then he's like, what if we marry Jane to Edward? And that's his plan A at this point, right? I
Yeah,
think.
I think Jane would have been totally down with that.
100%.
Oh my god, those two nerds would have loved it. But
There
we'll
would
get
have
to
been
that.
Marionette puppets.
I don't know if they'd
Jane,
have ever figured out sex, but they would have had a
Jane, and the
really
like
good marriage.
little sad dying boy king in this movie are so cute. Um. So anyway, so he's like, this is their scheme, and then,
Oh, and I
as my
figured
notes
out what
say,
he died from. I'm very excited about that.
Edward. Oh, when we get to that, you can tell us.
Yeah.
Okay, so people go hunting for approximately 45 minutes as the opening credits roll, and we see the name
Okay.
of every person
They're all in
involved in the character in this
camouflage.
movie.
They're all in camouflage.
They're all in snow
They're in
camouflage. They're all in white.
snow camouflage, white fur. It was amazing.
And it
The
also
outfit,
is really in keeping with all of Anne's other picks for this podcast, in which the concept of film editing does not exist and they just show everything. It takes
oh,
someone 15 minutes to walk down a hallway. We're going to watch all 15 minutes of
well,
that
and it's
walk.
like when they send someone, they're like, "Oh, could you go over to this other house?" It's like cut to. It's like, well, we need to show that they used a carriage to get there, so let's just like show the
The
carriage.
carriage. Then we got to make sure they know that the carriage could turn a corner. There's a scene in this movie where we got to make sure that we know that the oars move up and down. I lost it. So this
There's
is
a reason.
when we got to the credits. I was like, it's one of these movies. Okay.
Yeah, the credits were conservatively 45 minutes long, and it's just people hunting and names of people.
And that poor deer, I felt so bad.
Yeah, so the deer, it's like, I don't know if you noticed, but the deer is a metaphor for Jane um being sort of preyed upon by people.
Oh, it's a
Oh,
metaphor. Oh.
I thought it was just 45 minutes of sad deer.
no, but then it's like, I forget if it's in The Crown, the TV show, or in the movie The Queen, but there's a whole thing where it's like the deer is Diana. Oh, it was in
Yeah,
The Queen,
yeah.
the movie. Yeah, so it's very much where. But also, side note, and we won't get into this, but like if you follow me on social media, you will know deer were at my place of work this past week. So I have like a special fondness for deer right now because they were so cute and so fluffy, and I just wanted to like squish them. So I work in Canada. There was deer at my work. Anyway, so a carriage is traveling. Inside of it, a man with no beard. So a new character.
He was
Guy with no beard.
very clearly a monk.
The Catholics wear these Catholic priesty outfits and have no beards, and that's how you know it's Catholics.
It's
Right?
clear, like, I don't know how you didn't know. It's very
I think
a
he was wearing a
religious figure,
rosary.
a
as well,
I
yeah.
think he was.
Yeah.
She calls
So
him
I
father.
didn't even say the
repeatedly.
rosary. I knew he was Catholic. I could tell. Like, he had all he had, like, he looked like he was going to convince somebody that they were immune to bullets. Like, he was that Catholic.
yeah. So this is a guy who he arrives and he's like, "Oh, I'm bringing letters from Princess Mary for the king, who is the little boy King Edward, and also letters for the Duke of Suffolk." Oh, and then it cuts to, in case again you didn't know the metaphor, Patrick Stewart and his wife Frances. The camera is like low, and they're like walking down from above, being like, "Dear, yes, we will be cruel to you." Like
They just liked being mean, and I did not like it.
her parents are very mean to her. Yes. And one of
They're
them is
mean
played
to
by Patrick
everybody.
Stewart, which again is very confusing. Her parents suck. Like his parents suck. It's a real, yeah, terrible parent movie. Inside, and I like this. Jane is curled up in a window seat reading a book while everyone else is hunting, and there's a famous portrait, like not done in her lifetime, but like from the 1800s, of Jane doing exactly this. And I made merch out of it. And I think it says like "fuck off, I'm reading" or something like that.
Which
Um
is Jane's vibe right here.
Which is
Oh, entirely.
100% her vibe. Yeah, so this guy comes in, and his name is Dr. Feckenham, subtitles told me, and he explains that he's the private confessor to Mary, the Princess Mary. And Jane is like, "Oh, great, I'm reading Plato in the original Greek." And she speaks with a real Audrey Hepburn accent in this HBC. I'm not sure if that's I feel like she often plays, like, Cockney accented people, so that was alarming, besides the fact
She
that she is,
grew
like
into that. So during this era was her very she did a lot of movies where she was the young lady on grand tour,
Mhm.
and she was like she very ingenue in
Yeah.
her early era, and she was very prim and proper, and she looked like you could not tell that that was Helena Bonham Carter for like 90% of the movie, and then there's one scene where it's like she's absolute chaos. It's like, "Ah, yes, I
Yeah,
see."
that's why I said, like, Helen Bonham Carter with hair like she now has. Yeah, she's so cute. Can we just, like, pause to say, like, how cute she
Please.
is?
She's also really, really good in this. Like,
Yeah.
really good. And
Before
she's
she
what, like
fell
She
in with
15, 16?
she's
before
nineteen
no,
years
she was
old.
16? She's
20.
19.
Yeah, 1920.
Yeah, yeah.
Before she fell in with the men, she was great. And then the men got a hold of her.
She was
Um,
a tiny
Kenneth
pint-sized
Branagh
powerhouse. Oh, Kenneth
and then
Branagh,
Tim
Tim
Burton.
Burton.
And yeah,
Yeah,
it just went all downhill from there. I mean,
yeah.
she's still amazing, but it still
She's
went
giving
downhill.
the energy of, like, a short, young Keira Knightley in this, like, kind of that
Yes.
poised, young English Rose. She's
She's
so
stunning.
cute in this movie.
She's killer.
And
And
she's so good.
intense. Like deeply intense.
Yes,
Yes.
with eyebrows. Um, okay, so Dr. Feckenham quickly is like, "Oh wow, you are like charming and smart, and let's agree to disagree vis-a-vis religion because we both love learning." And she's like, "Learning is the only pleasure I have in life." Cut to her family comes back from the hunt. Patrick Stewart playing a horrible character looks amazing in his
I
gigantic
want
furry Tudor robe thing.
I want one of those so bad, and, like, I understand that buying fur is unethical, and I don't need it, but I wear the hell out of that onto the train to work every day, and I would
It's
just
like
sashay into the office like, "Good day, I'm the Earl of Suffolk." This is
like his width of fur is like the same as his height. Like he's so wide of
and Patrick Stewart is not a
furs.
wide individual,
No,
but he
I've never
No.
seen
so much space.
like in
And
Picard in Star Trek, he's wearing his little like onesie pajamas, and in this, he's like never have I seen Patrick Stewart take up so much space.
and all three of us are from cold climates, so like we know the value of a really good, really warm coat. It's
We're all
like
like, "Ooh, that's stylish. Ooh, I bet he's so warm."
Yeah.
I bet he doesn't even feel the wind chill.
So yeah, they're wearing white, as mentioned before. They're hunting camouflage. Jane is wearing black, so this shows immediately. Oh, they're different. They're different from each other. And then Edward comes in, the boy king, and he respects. He's like, "Oh, you're reading Plato in Greek. Love that." So they're like, they're good. They're friends. They're cousins and friends.
He's so
Then there's a
little.
feast.
He's
He's
such a
so
little
cute.
kid.
He reminds me of Henry, the guy who played Neville Longbottom. He reminds me of that guy. Henry Melling. Like he's a really cute little guy, the little king.
Very cute.
Anyway, we will move on to a feast for no reason at all. Jane's mom is wearing full white face paint. No one else
Because
does
that's
in the
how
whole
we
rest of
know
the
she's
movie.
a bad person, is because that's how they use makeup and costume dramas, is she's either a prostitute or a terrible person.
That's true. That's
I
true.
Someday
literally
we'll
like
watch the Mary Queen of Scots movie with Saoirse Ronan, and I will get to yell about Elizabeth's makeup someday, because I have lots of opinions about that.
that's exactly what I looked like during my goth days, by the way.
Just wait. There
Just
was a time
I
in
literally
my
use
life.
clown makeup. Well, I mean, obviously I don't possess melanin. It's just not a thing that I was given granted at birth. So I was actually using clown makeup and with moisturizer mixed into it as my foundation, and no one noticed. They're like, "Oh, your makeup looks great." I'm like, "Yeah, it's white clown makeup with moisturizer in it. Thanks."
Lana,
Learning so much about you today.
Yes, I
no,
do
but
have a
here's
vitamin D deficiency. Why do you ask?
the thing I want to mention, Lana, is when I was maybe 11 and I didn't own any makeup, I was like, I'm pale. I too wore clown makeup
See,
as
this is why
foundation
we're friends. This and Return of Martin Guerre.
because I was like, I'm pale.
This'll do.
Yeah. So anyway, she looks,
No, no, yeah,
creepy.
I'm sorry. The chat, literal clown makeup, literal white tube of clown makeup mixed with a little bit of moisturizer
Same.
on my
Same.
face
Literal tube of
as a
Halloween
19-year-old.
Halloween makeup is what I used as well. Yes.
I
But I
am
was also
as stunned as the chat is right now.
I was also a literal goth in DC in the 90s. So, like,
I
I
was just like a little
I
weirdo in
made
Halifax.
choices.
I don't know. I still choose the lightest color of foundation, but not that pale.
I do
Um,
not wear makeup.
I don't usually,
I
but tonight I am.
I also have
Occasions.
I also have a collagen problem, so I look 10, 15 years younger than I actually am.
So white face paint. Oh my gosh. Okay, so I watched this movie twice, as I do when we're doing these things, because I watch it first just for vibes, and then I watch it again for notes. And the first time I watched it, I was like, "Who's that little red-haired girl? Could that be Lady Catherine Grey?" And then the end credits, it was like Lady Catherine Grey. I'm like, it was.
I was
Because
wondering too.
usually
Thank you for finding that.
no, because I was also being like, is that supposed to be Elizabeth? Because it's a bold choice to have Lady
That's what I
Catherine
thought
Grey
too.
be a little red-haired girl when it's like so. But I'm like, Elizabeth's not younger than Edward, so I was just like, who is this? No one says her name, but it's Lady Catherine Grey, who is an episode I did of the podcast, and I like that this little girl in the movie is just she's in the background watching the ball, being like, "Oh, I can't wait till I'm old enough to be at the ball," and then she's like playing with a doll, and that's like her whole story, Catherine Grey. She just like wanted to be in love and to like have like this little girl is like in my head canon, just like acting out the whole future of her story.
Isn't isn't she also Carrie Elwes's ancestor?
Yes.
That's
Yes.
the one that was Carrie Elwes's ancestor.
Yeah, Carrie
Like
Ellis
he's
is
actually
descended.
related to both.
He's related to both the Greys and the Dudleys. Yes, Carrie Ellis. Anyone who's
But through the
descended from
siblings.
them is through Catherine because she's the
Obviously.
only Grey sister who had children. There's no Mary Grey, which was disappointing to me because I like
She
Lady
was my
Mary Grey
favorite.
as well.
I love Mary Grey.
She was also just a little nerd, and I liked her a lot. Okay,
It's
so they're at
reactionary to
the
the terrible parents that they had.
yes in the movie and in real life.
And in the
Um, so Edward is now in black, which makes him match Jane. He invites her to dance, and they dance, and they're so cute. They're just two little nerds who just like love Protestantism and like reading Plato in Greek, and they're like hee hee with dancing, and they're just two cute little
and they
buttons.
bond over their terrible parents.
Yeah, yeah. Anyway, so this is before again. I call him in my notes beard guy number 2, but it's Papa D. He's like, so he's talking to Francis, and he's like, I see a glittering future for your daughter, madame. She has been brought up in the Reformed religion, right? There's a lot of real casual exposition like that throughout the movie.
Your
Like, tell
daughter,
me.
Protestant, yeah? That's what I thought.
So Protestant she can shame a priest, yes? Cool.
Great,
Good,
great.
good, good. Wanted to confirm for myself.
And then I just appreciate, like in every movie set in this time period, they do the hoppy hop switching partners dance, like in Shakespeare in Love. It's like, oh, is it the Tudor era? Like doop a doop a doop, switchy partners, hoppy hop, like they do the dance. That is mandatory. every British actor, I think you learn that at RADA.
I appreciated that they weren't actually good at it. Like usually they have
True.
the dancers practicing so much that they're like perfection of the steps. And this one is like they were actually dancing like humans.
It's true. They're just like having a good time and it's kind of messy. This could be also be like where Mr. Mistopheles comes in, but he does not.
Ugh, but he could have.
I was gonna
Cymbal
say,
shanks,
no,
tap
The way
dances
Allison
through.
lit up.
no, I'll tell you later where they for sure practically do come in, but that's later with the ladies in the Star Trek outfits. But that's not this
Yes.
feast. That's a different feast. Okay.
I watched a different movie than the two of you.
Oh, I know you did. I'm sorry about that.
Mm. Okay, so I think Papa D is like, I have another son. His name is Guildford. Cut to Carrie Elways, just slightly before the Princess Bride, so looking a little bit younger. He's like 25, 26. And he looks, I just have to give like full disclosure, like so cute in this movie.
I regret to inform you that Cary Elwes in this movie is my type of historical man. Everything that he's doing is for me. And no one warned when I came in that I was like, oh no, they did all my things. They checked all my boxes for my sweet little douchey himbos. And it just
Dirtbag,
He's
douchey himbo,
really great
deeply
hair.
Great hair, secret liberal philosophies, and progressive politics.
Extremely shitty dad.
Yeah.
Extremely shitty.
But he's
Just
like
trying to make it as a nepo baby.
Yep.
When they fall in love, he is just like so 100% has her back. Like it's like a good. I'm just like that's a good boyfriend for you, Jane, and anyone
Yes.
like to have a himbo like Guildford Dudley.
Edward would have made her too much her. Like they would have never figured anything out. They would have been
No.
run by everyone around them.
Yeah,
but
the
Guildford,
two of them
brought her out.
And again, asterisk movie Guildford.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Like, we need to make a real schism here between like actual Guildford and movie Guildford. Movie Guildford.
I called him Cary Elwes in my head the whole way to make sure I could make that distinction.
I think I will too, just so we all know. Like actual IRL Guildford, who cares? He sucks. This guy,
great guy,
honestly.
big fan.
I mean, this was an amazing rom-com.
No notes. Yeah. Okay, so he's gambling in a saloon, getting in a fight somewhere while wearing voluminous maroon-colored pantaloons. He's being flung about, the pantaloons akimbo. And then some guy, who I think we learn later is his brother Robert Dudley, is like, Merry Christmas, Guildford. And I'm like, what? Christmas? Why? So now this is technically a Christmas movie.
The very beginning. No,
so cut to
Robert was played. Let me double check this. I'm just going to absolutely confirm it before I say it out loud because I sometimes say things and they turn out wrong. Robert Guildford was played by somebody that I just recently looked up in something else and it scared me. I think it was played by the guy that was in the Colin Firth the 90s yet. Crap.
I'm so in suspense. I'm like, Mr. Like, what name are you going to say next? really.
Sorry, he was in the 1996 Emma as Mr. Knightley. He was the Mr.
Oh. He is like a handsome, strapping person, whoever this guy is playing Robert Dudley. Which is interesting in this movie. Casts Robert Dudley as like the voice of reason to his brother Guildford.
Like a thing he has never been, ever.
He was Robert Dudley.
He was also Mr. Collins in Lost in Austin.
That's what you're looking at?
Yeah, that's what I remember him from. I remember he was Mr. Collins, but I couldn't remember which one it was. But he was. I knew he was in one of the old Jane Austens and then one of the new Jane Austens, but I couldn't remember which was which.
God, how bad have you fucked up your life if Robert Dudley is your voice of reason? Like,
oh yeah.
Yikes.
Oh,
this movie makes some real interesting decisions, and which I respect and support. To say like, here's a series of events and humans and people who lived and did stuff, but let's make this a movie and turn them into characters. And so just they assigned the character of like voice of reason to Robert Dudley, which is categorically insane.
Yes.
but that is what they did.
These are choices, and they made them.
They're like, honestly, I didn't realize it was Robert Dudley until I'm just like, who's this guy who's always with him? I'm like, is this a gay storyline? No, it's his brother. Okay, so Jane and Edward are out walking along a river in tiny little furry cloaks, just like two little cute little like elf teens in fur. But then Edward faints and everyone comes running over. And later Papa D is like, Jane, don't tell anyone the king was sick. And she's like, you're asking me to lie? And he's like, yes. And she's like, ugh, I don't care for this scheminess, which is how you know she's not going to do well in like royal court.
He also, looking Edward does such a dramatic swoon. I just love him so much because
He's
he's just like,
so
I shall faint. He's so cute.
his swoons are so cute. He's so cute.
He's
Him and her are just like these little nerds. For no apparent reason, then it goes London, spring 1553, and I'm like, is that supposed to be? They don't give dates any other time in the movie, but they're just like spring 1553. Like, okay, got it.
Basically, from this point on, it's like almost straight through.
Yeah, true. Yeah, because once I remember when I was writing an essay about Jane Grey, like you're writing like, oh, she did this, and suddenly you're just like, okay, the morning of this day, this happened. That afternoon, like the timeline gets so crunched because things just like happen. So I guess it's
And
that
her whole life
period.
is like a week and a half.
Yeah. Okay, so Jane is going to visit her cousin, Princess Mary, and they're like, oh, she's late because she's playing cards. And Jane is like, card playing? That's not.
How very dare.
By the way, if you're like, ooh, Mary, Queen Mary, that debauched person who has no sense of religious propriety, it's like the whole time being like, are we aware of the same Princess Mary?
It's true. That's the same thing where it's like they took the history and then they're like, let's make characters.
The only character choice I was offended by in this entire film is Princess Mary. I think they did her dirty, and I'm mad about it.
Audacity?
What was
would you
dirty?
say?
I would say it's audacity in a negative way.
I mean, if you take it as Mary as a litmus, we know exactly who Mary is and just how prim and proper and perfect she is. And then you had Jane being like that. You're like, oh, honey, leave the house. Put the book down. Talk to a person.
Yeah.
Like, interact with humans. Meet them where they're at. Don't just judge them.
Yeah. Touch some grass, Lady Jane.
16-year-old Lana, who was not a goth. who had a perfect record at church.
Goth church.
No, I was an E-free baby. I was in youth group and I knew all the words to Jesus Freak. I was so little baby Jane.
Little baby Lana.
Judgerson. Yes.
Yeah.
And then I became a goth 3 years later. It was great.
You got your clown makeup and just never looked back.
Basically, yes.
So Mary arrives. This is interesting, or Allison. Like we have a controversy here because I said Mary arrives and she is great.
Mary arrived and I'm like, hashtag not my Mary.
I'm just like, she's wearing purple velvet, like big Catholic vibes. Like literally, I think she's wearing the outfit of one of the famous portraits of her. And then she hugs Jane and then whispers over her shoulder, like in my favorite other show, Revenge. The over the shoulder, secret ominous hug. She's like, if I were you, I'd take care, little cousin Jane.
I will say, to be fair to Princess Mary, she starts out fine. This is a great intro. She's just like, yes, hello, I'm Catholic. Let me like genuflect before a random host in my hallway and then say something ominous.
I just need to let you know Hepburn has crashed the show.
No.
Can you go on camera, Hepburn? I don't know how to get her on camera, but like, no, she's here. She's here. I don't want to like make her uncomfortable. Anyway, no, she's here. She's just like, I also did not care for Mary. Thank you. Where I thought she was great is Mary the First has not been in a lot of movies. And the one that I remember her being in was Elizabeth with Kate Blanchett, where she was just this like hysterical is the word I'm going to use because that is how she is portrayed. Just this like woman who's just like, just like insane, useless, dumb.
Yeah, but she'd been
And
married to
here,
Philip for like 3 years by that point, so,
actually
like,
true, it's
that
like that's what happened to her. She'd been through a lot of medical issues as well. But in this movie, she's, like, smart, she's canny, I'm just like, "Yes." Hashtag my Mary. Um, but Sam just cat distracted, just like, no, she's there. I've turned on a flashlight, so anyway, she's just confused. I moved the computer to a different side of the table, and she's just like, hashtag not my table set up.
Lena is
Um,
also asleep just out of shot. You can't see her. She's
yeah,
just
just know cats are nearby.
yeah, about
Okay, so anyway, Papa D is talking with
she
Frances.
is.
Frances is eating meat off of a thigh bone. She's just eating meat, holding in her hand like a bison bone thigh. Just
I
like
mean,
that.
she's
It's
been to
oldie
a
her.
Ren fair before. She knows what medieval times is like.
Yeah, that's what she's doing. Papa D is like, so he's so evil. He's like Rasputin and Anastasia. He's just like, so did you know that Edward is
he
dying?
just needed a mustache.
He did, and then he would have looked different from all the other beard men also.
True.
So he's like, I think that we should marry Jane to Guildford because then we can like use them as our puppets, and then you and I will have control, Francis. But also, they don't want a Roman Catholic on the throne because Mary would be that. This is where I wrote, because Mary is next in succession, but she's Catholic, and then Elizabeth is next, but they're technically illegitimate. Like, listen to my 12 hours of podcasting to learn more about that family tree.
Do you wanna know why he was dying?
Yes, what did he
Okay.
die of?
So, but the best guess that they have is that he died of tuberculosis. But as we learned in the last Vulgar Peace Theater from our beloved Doc Holliday, tuberculosis doesn't kill you very fast. It's a wasting disease. Basically, it's relapsing, remitting, and it just kind of eats your lungs until you don't have enough to breathe anymore. But before he caught tuberculosis, he had measles. And measles basically does this thing where it completely resets your whole immune system. So you're unable to fight things for the next like years, for basically years after getting measles. So measles like completely exposed his immune system, and then he caught tuberculosis right on top of that.
Hmm.
And it just it did like fast forwarded his lungs. Like by the time he died, he didn't have a right lung. So he I thought he was sickly. He wasn't sickly. He just he caught measles and then he caught tuberculosis, and that like that's what they're that's the best guess. Obviously we don't have his remains or anything like that, but based on everything they see and the epidemiology, because if you don't know, my background is that I am a I study mostly historical demography, so I study like censuses and population trends as a in addition to like all the regular stuff you have to do to get your history degree, and so like illnesses and all that stuff. So they actually know when illnesses went through
Right, like where they were and when.
and what illnesses they had, like when it was influenza, like somebody gets sick at one point, it's like that's during an influenza strain, that kind of stuff. So like they
Yeah.
know what strains we're going through based on the historical record, so that's what they were able to piece together.
Because I think some people think it was the sweating sickness, but that had like 4 like swaths of time where that came through, and this was
Yeah,
not one
those
of
are
those times.
very
There were
specific
so it was
pinpoints.
like 3 to
We
4
still don't know what
years.
it is.
Yeah, wild, and then it just never happened again. Also, we got a surprise cattail right there, which was
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, she's here. Like, just know she's here.
"Oh, hi, baby."
Um,
There she is.
can you I don't know if I can it's so shadowy down here. Hepburn,
No,
can
you
you
can
say
see an ear.
That's how she
beep?
likes it. There she is.
Baby.
Hello,
Hello,
Hepburn.
I'm
baby.
sorry, that is very undignified. Um, but I put a poll on Instagram and I was like, are you more excited to see me, Lana, and Allison or the cats? And it was 50-50. So
That's
like
fair.
just know she's here. She's nearby.
I'm sorry, I don't have a dog.
There was once a dog.
There was
And the
once a dog.
dog
He
was
used to have a
this
no closed door policy, so you would have definitely seen
he was on episodes of Vulgar Peace Theater before.
him.
And we loved him very much.
His name was Hamish. I loved him very much. He was the worst.
Much like
Speaking of the
Guilford
worst,
Dudley, in a way.
Much
Patrick Stewart.
no. Much like Patrick Stewart in this movie.
No, speaking of, this is where he walks in and he's got the two biggest dogs in the world with him. He's like,
Oh,
Jupiter,
no.
chop chop.
Of course, he
Just,
named
oh,
his
he's
dog
having
Jupiter.
he was chewing scenery as he enters with his two giant hunting dogs. Just
He's got these
spitting
two
out
dogs.
tapestry.
He's got his cloak as wide as he is tall, and he's just like, fur, fur has entered the chat. Fur. And a bald
He's
head.
like, "Are we plotting evil? Because I'm here for it."
I was left out of the evil plotting session. Me and my cape.
He would
So
not
he comes
plot.
in-
He just does. He does not think. He does not think.
No. So Francis is like, hey, here's the plot. We're going to like marry Jane to Guildford for like evil reasons. And he's like, engage. Make it so.
Make it so. Correct.
I'm so sorry.
Make it so.
I'm so sorry. She said, not sorry at all.
It's in my notes. I had to say it. I've been listening to a podcast nonstop, relentlessly recently. That's called the Newbie Star Trek podcast, and they're going through the Next Generation. So I've really got Jean-Luc Picard on the brain at the moment.
I'm just watching the final season of Picard, and I have Picard on the brain.
Yeah. Is this an okay time for me to share a possibly controversial thought about Patrick Stewart's handsomeness?
You can try.
Go on.
Because I was like, how has he not gotten Sexiest Man Alive?
Oh, that's not a controversial. We thought
No, that's
Lynn and I
not.
both thought you were going the other way, and we're just like, are you going
No.
to say that Patrick Stewart is not incredibly
No,
handsome?
I was watching him in this movie, and I'm just like, he's so handsome.
He's the wrong kind of handsome. Like he's daddy handsome. He is not. He's not baby handsome.
No,
He
I
is
get it.
daddy handsome.
He's like
And
handsome like
so-
your friend's hot dad. Yeah.
And so he
Yeah.
like during the time where handsome, like his peak handsomeness was like Tom Selleck and that kind of like machismo
Yeah.
garbage. But today Patrick Stewart would totally top all the charts. Like we
He's-
understand the difference now.
His voice, his like intensity, which is why like
Just presence. He walked into a room and you're like, I'm not paying attention to anybody else.
Like
Just
he's
Yeah.
definitely the captain. Like he's the guy in charge. He never plays side roles. Like he's a side role in this, but he's still like he walks in the room, he's the guy in charge.
that's the thing. And I don't know, I wouldn't necessarily have cast him as Papa D, but it
No.
feels unbalanced to have someone with his energy in a smaller role to other people. It's just kind of like,
But it also puts more intensity on just like you understand how bad Jane's life was because we have someone that's so like if they had anybody weaker in this role,
you'd be like, Jane, just don't listen to him. Just don't do it.
just do something else. It's like no, it's these two people that are just they are not going to listen to any sort of reason,
yeah.
and they're going to like they are full and complete within their whole selves. No matter like, and he doesn't get a lot of screen time, so he has to hit that real hard, real fast.
And he does. He's so good. But
And
slash,
so does the actress that plays Frances.
Who's
Yeah.
incredible. And I had to look her up afterwards. I'm like, surely she's worked so much. And she's in nothing else that I've seen.
I feel like they're both like the whole cast, except for Carrie Elways and Helena Bonham Carter, are just the Royal Shakespeare Company. So I feel like they're all just like they've done a lot
Yeah.
on the stage. Patrick Stewart just happened to like phase
Star
out of that
Wars.
into other stuff. Oh, and Star Wars.
They've also done a lot of Star Wars.
Well, that was filmed in London.
Yes, exactly. And
okay.
that one series of movies that no one is ever going to talk about. So at least Allison and I have.
No. Okay, so Patrick Stewart is like, great, engage the teenagers to each other. And Papa D is like, Guildford, he's a quiet and studious boy. I imagine right now he's probably reading Plato and original Greek. Cut to Guildford, drunk, literally being thrown out of a tavern, like bodily in his pantaloons, just thrown. Robert is like, it's bedtime, Guildford. And then
And
cut
that's
to-
when I also thought I didn't know that was Robert Dudley, and I was like, is this Is this is what? Are they a thing? What are
Yeah,
we
who
doing
is this
here?
guy? Like,
Why do
let's
they have so much sexual tension if he's his brother? I don't understand.
I think that's just Carrie Elways inherently with everybody.
It could be.
Um, so cut to Jane
Star
is
Wars.
told is Carrie Elways in Star Wars?
No. Unnecessary sexual tension with your sibling.
Oh,
Ah,
yes. Engage. That's my last one. Um, okay, so Jane is told that she must marry Guildford, and this is where we learn, and I don't think I knew this before. I might have said it on the podcast, and if so, I forgot. His name is Guildford, a real weird name, because it's his mother's maiden name.
That's a good
And
reason.
what's interesting about that to me as a name aficionado is that Robert Dudley had an illegitimate child with a woman who was also named after her mother's maiden name, and her name was Douglas Sheffield. And she was a woman in the Tudor times. Everyone was called Elizabeth, Mary,
Margaret or Mary?
Margaret, and she's like, "Oh, hey, what's up? I'm Douglas Sheffield."
She sounds like a 1930s movie starlet.
Yeah, she does. I love her.
I
It's an
love
incredible
that.
name. I
Her
know. So
only
it's just
flaw is sleeping with Robert Dudley.
yeah. But then she sued him later or something.
I take it back. Play the long game.
She
Play the
brought
long
She
game.
herself
figured it out.
back.
Actually, Tits Up
That's a
Brigade,
redemption
the
story right
chat,
there.
I might be confusing it. She might have slept with Robert Devereaux. It's one of the Roberts.
Who also
Chat.
sucked, right?
They're both terrible, but she did sue whichever one it was. Yes.
Okay.
I think it was her, and then he was gonna marry Lettice Knowles, but then they were like, "You're already married to her," and she's like, "And I'm suing you too." Like it was a whole thing.
Yeah, it was
Douglas
Robert
Sheffield.
Dudley.
Robert Dudley, yeah. So it's
Oh,
interesting.
bless
Robert
him.
Dudley is like, "Oh, your name is Douglas. That's totally normal to me. My brother's called Guildford." Everyone has like their last names as first names. It's a real micro trend in the 1553.
It's a shame that the real Guildford wasn't good because you really like people that have weird names.
I
And
love a
I
weird
like it for
name.
you when you find those.
I am so excited when someone is not called Robert. Yeah.
Yes.
I know because I hear about every single one of them.
It's true. You do.
Lana, I found somebody whose name wasn't Robert or William
His name
or
is
Edward.
Ferdinando.
And you remember that. I remember. I'll never forget Ferdinando.
Where was it you were studying that everybody had a cool nickname?
Oh, I don't remember. But
Was it
I did it.
Iran or was it Turkey? The
Oh, wait,
Ottomans.
it's like Suleiman the Magnificent, and then it's like his son was so and
It's the
so the
Ottomans.
learned, and I'm like, thank you. Give them an adjective. I'll remember now. Yeah. Okay, so I just want to check in. How's the chat doing? Is the chat okay?
I like the cats.
Mm-hmm.
They like Papa D very, very much. They like the nickname Papa D.
Mm-hmm.
They like Jane's consistent disdain for Catholicism, which says she's so valid. And Hepburn is best baby.
It's true. She is best baby.
Hepburn, they say you're the best baby.
Mina is also precious. Do not take.
Mina
Oh, she's precious, but she's not good.
No,
like,
she's not good.
She's not. She's not a good girl, but she's a precious.
They say
She's
they're doing well. They're sticking with us. So
yeah.
Mm,
Okay, good.
right.
Because you guys we're 20 minutes into this movie. That is 2 hours long. Oh my god, it's Mina.
No, that's not true. Because we had 45 minutes of
credits. Yeah.
The deer chase.
We're keeping pace with the movie, which again shows every time somebody enters a room and then exits the room. Does the corridor bend? Let's see. Oh, look, they're wearing a cape. Okay, so we learned Guildford's name, and then they're like, "You need to marry Guildford." Jane is like, and I'm gonna mention this, I don't want to get into the abuse of Jane in any detail in this movie, but just because this happens 3 times, Jane is told to do something, and she says, "I can't, I won't," and does not give in. And this happens 3 times. It's her stubbornness is historically accurate. I believe that she was, in fact, very reluctant to marry Guildford and had to be forced into it. So,
and she would have still married Edward, even if she knew he was dying. She would have stayed by his side and nursed him.
Yeah, she would have read him Plato in the original Greek. Just really
baby nerds,
and then gotten herself
oh my
sick.
god.
And then wasted away beside of him.
But I will say that, and I don't know, in this movie at least, you get the impression I think from her first scene that Jane wants nothing more in this life than to murder herself for Protestantism.
Yes.
She's just really excited for an opportunity, should that arise, for that to
That
happen.
that's called a trauma response.
Hmm.
Yes.
But she and Oliver Cromwell would have gone along fabulously.
Oh, that
Okay,
feels like slander to the memory of Jane Grey.
like, but this is like hashtag real Jane Grey. Movie Jane Grey is like abolish the prisons, socialism, like
But
movie
And
Jane Grey.
inflation.
that's only after she got indoctrinated by Guildford.
Yeah.
Like before then, no, she had no thoughts about any of that. She
Oh
wasn't.
no.
She had no populist leanings whatsoever. She didn't even know there were humans outside of her house. She was just
We
trying to survive being in that building.
and valid, and she did what she needed to do.
Right.
And I do think that the two of them, when we get to the relationship, they have like not even met yet in this movie. It's a real
It's
trauma
fine.
bond. It's a real trauma
Oh yeah.
bond, and they
Yeah.
really help lift each other up. Did you watch? Hey, chat. Today, Prince Harry did a sit-down Zoom interview with Dr. Gabor Mate that I watched, and it was really insightful and interesting. And there was a lot of stuff about like trauma. Like it was a very like clinician psychological discussion. Whatever. Did I pay $45? Do I get a copy of Harry's book? Yes, but it was really interesting. And one of the things they talked about was that people tend to wind up with people who share a similar level of trauma to them, and then ideally the two of them help support each other to like, and then if they have children, to like raise those children to break those cycles. And it's funny because I watched that and then I watched the second half of Lady Jane, and I was like, this is just like Prince Harry was saying. Like Jane and Guildford are like breaking these toxic cycles. Anyway. And then I was like, is Prince Harry like Jane Grey? And I was like, that could be a think piece, but for another day.
I don't know if that's gonna hold up the more you look into that.
I don't know.
But
I
I
don't know.
support the effort.
But I thought it was interesting, like the trauma bond of
Yeah.
them. It's anyway, again, in this movie retelling, they haven't met each other yet. Anyway, so Jane is abused, and then this is where her hair gets to look like actual Helena Bonham Carter hair. And that's where it's like, oh, is that Helena Bonham Carter? Because her hair is now like
askew.
Yeah. Like how she looks now all the time. Anyway, she's not giving in. She will never give in. This is like a thing we learn about her. Her like when her mind is set, like it is set and she'll never change it. Which is like historically accurate. Actual Jane Grey was like a stubborn little asshole who I love, and was a stubborn little asshole who had a lot of opinions and about how everybody should live their life, etc. Wasn't there something about like she wrote a letter to somebody being like complaining about her parents were like not praying enough at dinner one time? She like wrote to a priest or something to be like, oh, my parents, like they're not keeping the Sabbath holy. And the priest was like, chill out, you little demon. So like accurate portrayal in this sense of her character. Anyway, so Papa D is talking to the dying boy king, who's like suddenly, ever since he fainted, is just looking awful. Which is, I guess, the tuberculosis kicking in on top of the measles.
He's going full Doc Holliday.
Yeah, he's got a real dog, but Doc Holliday lived for years.
Because he went to the dry climate and learned how to be a professional gambler.
You know what? That's a real issue because I
referencing Doc Holliday.
England, not a dry climate.
Not a dry climate, very very moist, and
that's why you need to go to. Yeah, you need to go to, where did Cece go? Madeira. You need to go to like
Madeira?
somewhere.
Yeah,
just have to go to Tucson, Arizona.
Tucson, Arizona.
Go to your plantation in Virginia.
It's not a thing. They don't exist yet.
Friends, that's a shout out to the first ever episode of Vulgar Piece Theater where we did Shakespeare in Love, and there's a whole plot point where Colin Firth's character is going to drag Gwyneth Paltrow off to his plantation in Virginia. And this
in
is
1593.
It's a movie that takes place before Virginia was a colony.
Jamestown had been established for like maybe 2 years.
plantations were not a thing.
Not yet.
And like wealthy dukes did not go there
Well, no,
to do
Jamestown
that.
wouldn't have been established because Jamestown is named after James.
James.
Good point.
Shakespeare in Love, famously, Elizabeth is the queen in that.
Famously.
Famously, because Jame Duty Dench, as I call her, she won the Oscar for being on screen for 30 seconds or whatever.
And we love her for it.
She deserved. Okay, anyway.
I was so mad. I was so mad.
Really?
I
Was
thought I was
someone
gonna
else
have
good?
no for the like for Shakespeare in Love. I thought I would be like,
Hmm.
oh yeah, whatever. This is Allison and Anne, and they'll talk and they'll have feelings, and I'm like, I'll just watch it. And I'm like, why is he going to a plantation? Why is this rich dude going to a plantation? There is
In
no
Virginia.
plantations.
Yeah.
There are no rich dudes.
And it's
This
kind
is
of
for
a
poor people.
major plot point of the entire story. It was a little bit of a plot hole. A little bit. But this is the first scene, so where the boy king is like, I'm dying, and then Papa D is all like, don't let the nation turn into a pit of popery. And every time Papa D says popery, he screams it. Like
He gets a little bit more unhinged it feels like a TikTok compilation where every time he says potpourri, it speeds up a little bit more. Like, it's truly...
Because they're trying to make sure that you understand where popes are, not where
potpourri.
smelly dried flowers are.
And I didn't think that until I just read it, and I was like, you're gonna turn this nation to a pit of potpourri.
When the way you said it, I'm like, I want to be very clear about that.
I might, if I'm gonna make merch based on this live stream, it like the top contender right now is Pit of Potpourri, I think.
You'd have it be like dried flowers.
It would be like Papa D's
With a Pope hat.
Pit of Potpourri.
A little Pope hat sticking out of dried flowers.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Tits Out Brigade, artistic ones.
Somebody on the screen.
I
still want somebody to make me a shirt that is the back is just like hair. It looks like you have really, really long brown hair, and it's a CC shirt and it has little stars in it. I think that would be a good shirt.
CC is really having a moment. I'm sure that exists somewhere.
She's the best.
Okay, so Papa D is like, Pit of Potpourri! And that's why Jane has to marry Guildford, and Edward is like, really? And he's like, Papa D is like, Jane isn't going to agree unless you, the king, tell her to. And Edward's like, okay, I'm dying.
She must be happy if I'm going to die.
Yeah, and he's just like, okay, I trust you, Papa D. Like, oh, okay.
Don't ever trust the Duke of Northumberland. I cannot be clearer about this.
So, anyway,
Shakespeare not yet taught you nothing?
Shakespeare isn't a thing yet.
That's true. No one's warned her.
It's not yet taught you nothing.
There's not Shakespeare yet. It's before that.
I was watching a TikTok that said which authors would be the most likely to write fanfic for AO3, and the number one answer is Shakespeare.
That was his whole job. Yeah.
I know. It's like he'd be like, that's all he would do. Like, that's all he would do.
We're going to be, just by the way, at some point, Allison and I have a date in April. We're going to do So This Asshole Shakespeare in time for his birthday, which is sometime in April.
Yes. April 23rd. You're ready.
Let's see.
He's a very different kind of asshole than the one I get to do.
Yeah.
Lana's going to do So This Asshole Wagner.
That's a different kind of asshole.
Hate him.
As you should.
I know I'm not supposed to be mean to the gay boys, but I hate him.
No, you can be mean to that gay boy.
Okay.
Trust me.
If and when you read Empty Theater by Jack Gems, the new book about Ludwig and Cece, like Wagner is in it and she like goes in on him. It's good.
That book is on order at my local bookstore and will be in next week, and I can't wait.
He's like your best friend's boyfriend that you hate. I love you. I hate your boyfriend.
Like your boyfriend really, really hates the Jews, and I don't know what to do about that right now.
Yeah.
Break up
Wagner.
with him.
Really.
Break up with him now.
Okay, so Jane
He's
is
also
still
pretentious.
Oh no.
I'm sorry, that's saving it for later.
We're gonna have a whole at least hour of Wagner venting.
I do not have time this evening for an hour of Wagner.
No.
Okay. Okay, so
But I'm
Jane is still
always
just
here
like
when you're needed.
I'll call you.
anytime on call. Okay, Jane won't give in, but then the dying boy king comes in. He's really pale and really sickly. He's like, everyone out. I'm going to talk to her. And they're all like, okay. And then he's like, Papa D said you need to marry Guildford, and I trust him, so please do this. But then also, he brings her a marionette puppet, just like in Sound of Music, the little wooden one. And he's like, look, it's a puppet. And she's all like, oh my God, it's so cute. And I'm just like, I love you too.
It's
You're
I
so
also was
cute.
here like, "You're so cute." And also, "Oh gosh, could you pick a different metaphor? Like, we've already done the deer, and now we're doing the 2 of you, your little marionette puppet dance." I'm like, "Okay, I get
Look,
it."
I'm
But they did
controlling its every movement.
And look how charming you find that to be, like, it's familiar somehow.
I didn't think of that metaphor, honestly. Thank you for
You're welcome.
elucidating that. I was just like,
That's why
it's
I
like
got
in
an
Sound of Music.
English degree for that.
And this makes her
They're
laugh
very
and
subtle.
smile
Mhm.
to me. He's like, promise you'll marry Guildford for me. And she's like, ugh. Anyway, so cut two. And this is just sort of like a extraneous sequence of just people walking, which I know you love, Allison.
My favorite.
It's just a sequence. Like, what happens is the king is just like walking with trouble, and then he collapses, and Papa D picks him up. And it reminds me of in the Secret Garden, where Papa
His
D
feet.
carries this like little ailing boy, and then they put him on a barge in a river. This isn't where they're like, look, the oars work, but practically. Then it's like, well, they're like, well, we have to show how did he get from that castle to that castle. Well, show them putting him in a boat, show the boat going down the river. And then he's sleeping in a sleeping hat.
It's the best sleeping hat we've seen in a Vulgar Piece theater production to date. It is adorable. I want one. It's like a little, like, more of a fez than, like, a nightcap, but it's, like, almost an octagon, and it's just a little tassel, and I want
It's
one.
got like gold embroidery on it, so it made me feel almost this is like his sleep crown. It's like so you can
Yes.
still be the king even when you're asleep with your like soft sided sleep crown.
Nighttime crown. He looks great.
That's
He's
Louis
dying,
Vuitton
but the
level.
hat's great.
It was very cute. Anyway, he's like not doing well. And so the doctor tells Papa D, like, oh, he's going to die in 3 to 4 days unless we give him arsenic that will keep him alive, but in excruciating pain. And Papa D is like, do that. Choice two, keep him alive because I have to scheme longer. Um, so cut to a character we haven't seen since the beginning, Beard One, the guy from the beginning. Still don't know who that is, but I was like, oh, it's Beard One. He enters a tavern filled with Tudor era sex barmaids, straight out of central casting from Les Miserables, Shakespeare in Love, every movie we've watched. White face, big curly red hair, bosoms. I'm just like, yep, that's what everyone thinks barmaids look like in this era, and maybe they did. But did they all? I don't know.
Why would you waste money on makeup?
Great point. Anyway, they're all just like,
And
oi
then
there.
Cockney accents. But it's the Cockney accents. It's like Cockney isn't even a thing yet.
But that's how you know they're poor.
Yep.
Biased you are.
They can't if they don't have fingerless gloves, then they have Cockney accents. And the
That's
gloves
how
would have been
biased
distracting.
you are.
It's
Like,
great.
Victorians ruined everything. Everything.
But
You
this
wanna
is
sew
like,
this
did they
house for
not?
Victorians? I'm here for 5 hours.
Did they not in Les Mis, a movie set in France, have Cockney
Have
accents
Cockney accents, yes, Gavroche
Yes.
famously has a Cockney accent.
to
Yeah.
show he's poor? But they
To
also
show
have
he's
That's how you
fingers
know
poor.
they're
He also has the
because
go yeah.
Victorians ruined everything.
because they just didn't like Cockney accents.
Because the default is what it was. The truth of Victorian era has become the default for all of history. They just like, oh, well, if you have a Cockney accent, then you know they're poor because in the Victorian era, poor people had Cockney accents.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, all of history was like that. Poor people worked hours and hours on end. Therefore, in all of history, people worked hours and hours on end, even though for most of history they were farmers and they worked very, very hard, but they did not work hours and hours on end. Again, if you want to sew this asshole Victorians, I'm here for all day and all
Oh my god!
night.
So this asshole colon Victorians.
all of the Victorians.
I'm
I
in.
mean, Queen Victoria herself is another 5 hours.
Oh, we're gonna do that. We're gonna do that for sure. She'll be our first lady asshole. Anyway, so the frizzy hair, Cockney accents, barmaids are just like, "Oi, what's that?" Anyway, Guildford is there. He's in a private room, asleep on the lap of a wench type person. They're like, "Congratulations, my lord, you're going to be married." And Guildford is like, "Oh, who to?" Um, then marriage prep. Jane, uninvolved, she sits on a window seat reading Plato in Greek. Guildford keeps trying to drink. Robert Dudley keeps like taking his like stash of booze away.
I
And
love Guilford so much. I just want to say that again. This whole montage, I was just like, you little dumb himbo. I know neither of you are on my level of Great Comet fandom, but he is bringing just the most Anatole Karagan energy to this film, and I love it so much. He's my boy. Ugh, I love this child. He
he's
sucks.
I I'm really happy how you feel about Carrie Elwes in this movie because I was just like, I'm in love with you.
He's so
Um
perfect.
anyway, so Guildford arrives. Patrick Stewart greets him, of course, in his a like I want to emphasize he's not wearing the same fur that's as broad as he is tall. This is a third new one. I think he's wearing four to
Brand
five
new fur.
different furs. Like he's got a lot of furs. Guilford goes out to meet Jane, and she's like, "Hi, I don't want to marry you. Let's live like cousins. I don't want to do this at all." And he's like, "I also don't want to marry you. So great." Um, and then it's the least happy wedding. Jane is just giving like huge bitch face. She's just like, "Kill me."
She is wearing a fantastic outfit here, though.
She's wearing a
Like,
fantastic outfit.
great.
And it is mostly white, which is usually a pet peeve of mine, but he's also in white. They're all in white, so I'll allow it.
I
She's
have the
like,
same thought.
what is it? It's like a gold veil
It's
crown
great.
hat.
Her little wedding hat. I'm into it.
And then the priest is like, and you love each other soberly. And Robert Dudley laughs out loud because Guildford.
It's probably currently
Do
drunk right now.
Yeah.
anything soberly.
Okay, so there's a banquet. Lady Catherine Gray, the little red haired girl, she's there just being like, one day I'll be a lady and I'll get to dance. And I'm just like, yeah, you will. Um, Jane is miserable. Guildford is wildly drunk. His hair is gone puffy
He's
with
stealing other
drunkenness.
people's booze.
Yep.
He's
Yep.
stealing her booze.
Yeah, the guy comes by to refill Jane's wine, and she's like, "No, I don't want any." And then Guilford takes her glass and holds up two glasses, like, "I'll take twice as many." And then this is where a group of women in Star Trek gold metallic long togas come in and do what I have to presume is an erotic dance.
And I assume this is the part you meant that Skimbleshanks the railway cat should have come
Yeah,
in
this
and
is where
done a
I
little
feel
Georgie
like
dance.
Mr. Mistopheles could have done this role as well.
Uh-huh.
But this is
Would have been
again just in terms of like the movie and its length. It's like, can we watch these women do their entire Dionysius-based
I
I was on for so long.
They
dance
put
now?
so much into it. I was absolutely convinced that the one that was flirting with him was the one that he like went to bed with before. Like, did she sneak it? Like, I almost gave her a whole subplot in my brain that she
We
like
just
wanted to finish the deal and snuck back in to be with him. And nope, there was no payoff there.
no, it's just a bunch of women come in, like, I have to really emphasize, wearing like gold aluminum foil based toga
That don't
dresses.
fit.
And they're doing this dance and they're like, oh, and they mess up and one twirls the wrong way. And we're like, do we need 25 minutes of this? And Guilford is just like, boobs. And Jane is just like, ugh, I wish I was reading Plato in Greek. And it's like, why is this movie
This is sinful.
2 hours and 20 minutes long?
Dancing is sinful. I'm going to go join Flashdance. Sorry, not Flashdance, the other one.
Footloose.
Footloose.
Yeah. Okay, so then anyway, while this is happening, meanwhile, up on the balconies, like Catherine de Medici in the Queen Margot movie, Francis is lurkily, just up in
Yeah.
the balcony, just in the shadows, being like,
Yes,
the
my
mezzanine.
plan. My scheme.
So she and Papa D are up there, and they're just like, when is the king going to die? And has he written out a will yet, naming Jane as his heir? And Papa D is like, no, but he will soon.
I'm
Patrick
working on it.
Stewart,
I have my arsenic.
And they're like,
Patrick Stewart comes in just like before. He's like, scheming without
Right.
me.
please explain scheme again so we can hear it.
Yeah.
It's one scheme
Would you like
at a
to
time,
share
not
your
enough.
scheme with the class?
As long
See?
as I win.
Yeah, he's like, "Oh, I heard scheming was happening." So, they're like, "Here's the plan. Like, the king has provided an old monastery to Jane and Guildford to live in." Um, and
Which,
they're like, "For now," basically.
but that was a thing that like suddenly hit me. Like it never. I also watched I Wood and Company TV
Nope.
show that just came out on Netflix, which is amazing. But they go to a dude's house that was like in the middle of his fancy 1800s house is a monastery with like ghosts in it and stuff.
Mm,
And it's like, of course this is where it came from. Of course they went in, they kicked all the monks out, and they took them over and turned them into their own personal royal manses. Like intellectually I knew that, but I like never put together that incident of like these fancy houses that are all built around really old like priories and stuff.
yeah. Which is like why oh, is that why it's called Downton Abbey? I always was
All coming
confused by that.
together.
It's all coming together until this movie when Guildford explains it later.
Yeah.
Anyway, Guildford is so drunk, he's having trouble with hand-eye coordination, like he can't make his cup of wine reach his mouth. And Papa D is like, "I can control him." And I mention that because that line comes back later. Um, then it's time for the bedding. Jane is in like a long velvet robe on top of a nightgown. And then basically Guildford is basically passed out in bed drunk, which is I was like, what does this remind me of? I'm like, oh, Caroline of Brunswick. When she married George IV, he was also passed out drunk.
But
Um,
this is like the era where they should have done like a Charivari almost. Like there should have been people there like making sure they did it so that they
yeah.
were really and truly married. But maybe that's a Catholic thing. Maybe it's because they're reformists and then they're just like
We
don't
don't
I don't
know.
know, especially after the like Catherine of Aragon scenario, you'd think they'd be like extra doing that.
right. Like it just seemed weird to me that no one cared that he got himself that drunk.
So Jane looks outside and there's like a man and a lady servant embrace passionately, and then she like is sort of crying, and then Guilford snores, and that is her wedding night. Okay, this next scene I don't understand, so I'll say what happens, and maybe hopefully you or the chat can explain to me what this is. So there, as the movie does, it's like, how are they going to get to the new house? I guess they'll go in a carriage. So then, but the carriage is stopped, and Jane is just looking at it. She's like, "Isn't it beautiful?" And Guilford is like, "Meh." And when he doesn't answer her question, she pretends to faint. Why? Like,
Just to get his
why?
attention, I think.
Attention.
Okay, so then he goes over to her, and then she's like, "Well, I didn't really faint." And he's like, "Bah, you!" And he like sort of like slams her down, and then they like roll down the hill in a real sort of like the Princess Bride rehearsal sort of way.
Practicing
Um,
for the ROUSs.
yeah, and then they do the thing where like she's lying on top of him or he's lying on top of her, and then he like looks at her like all smoldery, and then he stomps off, which is hilarious because he's wearing pantaloons that just jiggle as he walks. Um, okay, so she just wanted his attention.
I think that
Um,
was the, look, there's some sexual tension here after all scene.
okay, okay.
Please maybe.
Um, but then anyway, they stopped, and because they stopped, that now they're separate from the rest of the like moving caravan, which is when why they are on their own when they're interrupted by a gang of unhoused people who just kind of start appearing out of the woods like in a zombie movie.
Yes, this is exactly what it's like.
Yeah,
Mhm.
they just emerge just like
This is
we're
a Walking
poor.
Dead scenario. I'm poor and unhappy. And I'm like, "Okay."
And so Guildford is like, "Hey, what are you guys doing
Are
here?
you going to kill us?
What's going on?" To his credit, he's the one to get out of the carriage to be like, "We're just going to this monastery to live in." And the main guy is like, "Meh," and shows him he has this brand on his skin. And Guildford is like, "Do you want these coins?" And the guy's like, hashtag land back. Um, I don't want your coins. He throws the coins on the ground, and the other zombie beggars are like, "Meh, coins." And he's like, "No, don't give him the benefit of taking the coins." Um, and Guildford gets back in the carriage, and he's got one of the coins left behind. Coins now become a strong through line in the movie. Anyway, so they get to their new place where they
So did you
live.
want to know what's happening there or
Yeah.
okay, okay.
I mean, I
I
saw
thought
some
it was
zombies
just
were like,
real.
"Don't give us coins."
No.
Meh.
Okay, Okay, so there were Catholics. They were Catholics who worked
The
for the
beggars are
monastery.
Catholics?
The
Oh, okay.
beggars were Catholics who worked for
Mm,
the monastery, and when the monks were turned out, their all the people that worked for them and like lived off of them were also turned out, so that the land could become some rich dude's land. And they were turned V. It was V for vagrant, because he didn't. He like they still weren't technic. They were still like borderline serfs. They weren't quite their own human beings. They had to like almost be owned or taken in by the lord of the land. So without a lord of the land, without somebody there to be in charge of them, they were they had nothing, nowhere to work. They had no one to support them, and they had no means of earning their own money, because like this is it's not like you can go start an Etsy business when you lose your job. Like you lose literally everything.
mhm,
And he's like, I just want to be a person again, basically, because they're Catholic. No one
right.
wanted them. So that's kind of what was going on there. And the other was like, I just need money. Like, I will take the money. I don't have the pride. And he's like, no, I only have the pride.
Yeah.
Because vagrancy laws are a thing that pop up when one group takes power from another group, or like in America, most of our loitering laws and our vagrancy laws come from uh, when the Emancipation Proclamation, when the slaves were freed, because that like before then, not many loitering laws, not many vagrancy laws, but after then, when all of these people were suddenly unhoused and unemployed and unemployable, all of a sudden it became a crime that they could be thrown in jail for that. So basically, the same thing was happening with the Catholics in England at the time. That's We learned a lot of lessons from them, a
Mhm.
lot of ways to treat people not like humans from our English colonizers.
And this is really Guildford gets into this stuff too. He's movie Guildford Carrie Elways is like
This is like his political awakening, sort of. Yeah.
Some of the chat
apparently.
goes, I love how the driver just let Guildford put himself in danger there with the hangry mob. Like, I was also sitting there going, like, um, do you have no footmen? Like, is no one this is someone's job. Like, literally, it's
Yeah.
someone's job is to handle the riffraff.
And the driver's like, he seems like he's got it. It's fine. He looks in control to me.
He's good.
He's gonna tell me what to do and I will do it.
He's like slightly drunk and I trust him.
Like, they didn't even like kick at him or anything. Like, usually I'm so used to the Victorian era where like the driver will kick at the people coming towards the cab, but that might be the Cockney thing. Like, they didn't use a Cockney accent, so how did we know they were poor?
How does he know
That's
that we're
true.
poor?
Great point. They did have real fingerless gloves vibes though.
They did do fingerless gloves though, but there were no fingerless gloves yet, so how would he know?
That's true. Just to explain to the chat, people who don't know our previous Vulgar, I forget what movie it even was. Was it Newsies?
It was probably Newsies with the fingerless gloves.
Or no, it might have been Les Mis, but it was just kind of
Oh
like
yeah,
the shorthand for costuming tends to be like, is it a poor character? Well, let's give them gloves with the fingers cut off because poor people don't have fingers on their gloves. That's how you know they're poor. And then once you start noticing that, it's like everything. Everything is just like, oh, you're a poor person. Great. Here's your like welcome to the homeless shelter. Here's your fingerless gloves. Um,
Here's your Cockney accent
costumes for
tapes.
you, so you're half naked.
yeah. Everything you wear is beige.
Unless
Okay.
it's Tombstone, and then everyone has too many clothes. Their
Our last
choice of
Vulgar Theater was
outfits.
Tombstone, and they were all really overheating. Okay, so Jane and Guilford are having dinner at their new monastery home, and all the servants are standing just outside of them, looking really hungry and kind of like they're gonna kill them. Like
And they're
so
all
many
staring.
servants just watching.
So awkward.
It was yeah. So Jane
'Cause
is
they
like,
like
well,
each other, and then everyone's watching them eat.
and they're literal children.
Yeah.
So Jane is like, oh, the mayor is going to come to dine with us tomorrow night, accompanied by several of his aldermen. And Guilford says, God's teeth, which is a great little phrase, and just is drinking wine. Oh, and then he drinks the wine out of these glass goblets. And it's like, Jane's like, oh, those glass goblets were made in Venice and they were a gift from Papa D. And then Guilford is like, would it be a shame if somebody dropped this on the ground? And Jane is like, Guilford, don't you dare.
Guilford, no. And he's like, Guilford, yes.
Very much so.
Jane's like, no, must follow rules. And Guilford's like, no, no rules. Rules bad.
Yeah. So
No, no,
I think
rules save us.
if you haven't seen the movie Chat, just like know that this is a real like
The battle of
there's
the
some
trauma responses.
yeah, there's some real drama going on between these two abused children who are just unconsensually married. Anyway, so Jane is like, so those like zombies in the woods, what's their deal? What do they want? And Guilford is like, they want food. And Jane is like, have they no farms? Which is like a big Ebenezer Scrooge thing to say.
She was giving a little bit of Marie Antoinette there.
She literally says, have they no farms? And Guilford is like, no, because what Lana just said. Like, our fathers kicked them out of the land, and now they're beggars. And this is where we discover that Guilford is a social justice activist.
And he drinks because he can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Poor little rich boy.
Mm-hmm.
So he's like, do you know what's happened to the value of money? Inflation. And he like slides the coin towards her, the one that he kept from the beggars. He's like, what's this? And she's like, it's a penny. And he's like, it's a shilling, actually. And she's like, no. Shillings are made of silver, and this is not made of silver. And then he's like, they used to be, but they aren't anymore. Inflation. You really have no idea what's going on, are you? All you do is read books about Plato and Greek. And she's like, yes.
Don't you
I
know that eggs cost $8 at the grocery store, Jane Grey? Gas was $5 a gallon.
I paid $12 for a value meal at McDonald's today.
And then she's like,
that is
right.
not a value.
But like in response, Jane Grey is like, but isn't it more important that the priests are all corrupt and worshiping idols? Popery?
Popery?
People like bread.
Yeah, he literally he says like, well, he's basically no, he doesn't literally say this. He's like, we have to act local. He's like, people locally are struggling.
You have to have grassroots activism, Jane.
Yeah, literally,
Start at home.
But
But
chat. This is what's happening. Yeah,
he didn't do that. He just got drunk. If he'd actually been living like that, I would have bought it a whole lot more. But he's like,
true.
but I can't actually do anything because Daddy's mean to me. I'm going to drink instead.
Well, no, Lana, and this is where Jane is like, well, fucking do something about it then. And then that's where he's like, there isn't any point. It wouldn't work. It never does. And then
about it.
And then Jane runs away crying, which is a shout out to the Sweet Valley High podcast. Because in the Sweet Valley High books, everyone is always running away crying. I'm like, oh my god, she's literally running away crying. Just like
well,
Sweet
it was
Valley
the
High.
right era for it.
And she is a teenager, so
this is peak Sweet Valley High era.
It truly is.
1986.
Okay, so the next day, and because again, we're now she said like the mayor is coming to dinner tomorrow. So like this movie is now on a day by day basis because ticking clock.
We do get a month jump.
We do.
But they were married in May.
Yes.
And I just skimmed ahead in Anne's notes, and this scene is my favorite scene of the whole movie.
Oh, is it the part where he's strolling around the grounds to this as the soundtrack of The Princess Bride mixed with Shakespeare in Love plays. Jane is curled up in a chair reading Plato in original Greek. Guilford lays sideways, sort of like sexily, and he chews sexily on a long piece of grass, then makes faces at a goat. The goat then makes faces back at him.
Calendar minute. This happens like 95 seconds of goat facing. It is cinema.
It's like my For You page.
It's just like the director is like, oh, Carrie Elways, like just have some fun. Like, let's just do a take for fun. And then he just the whole thing.
At that point, I almost wanted to text you both and be just like, this movie is a real film that's actually happening. I'm not hallucinating this movie.
Like, they give it the goat like a 30-second close-up of just like goat. And him being like,
in the credits.
Oh, I forgot, in the credits, the person is called Head Beggar. Or it might be Lead Beggar is the name of the main zombie from back.
What's the goat in the credits?
I hope so. I hope it's like, Daisy as the goat or whatever. Oh, and this is where I said sequences like this are why this movie is 2 hours, 20 minutes long. Anyway, so then after he turns his eyes away from the goat over to his wife, and he sees Jane reading. And he's like, reading. I wonder what that
Goats
is.
can't do that.
wonder if I torture her, will she entertain me?
So that night, Guilford paces around and then he's like, I'm gonna go talk to her. I want to know about her book. So he goes up into her room and she's like reading in bed because every scene we see of Jane where she's not having to do something she doesn't want to, she is reading a book. She is never not with book in hand. He's like, I'm sorry. And he doesn't say for what. So I guess it's just generally. Jane says, it doesn't matter. And he says, yes, it does matter. And then he's like, what are you reading? And it's just like, ugh, I hate that when you're reading something, someone's like, ooh, what are you reading? I'm like, you don't really want to know. But in this case, he does. He's
That's
like, he's like, explain to me the religious schism. What are
which
your
Because
beliefs?
being,
the worst
being the
pickup
son of
line you've
Papa
ever heard
D.
is, "Can you explain the religious schism to me?"
Carrie Elways is doing his best to be smoldering and to be sexy, as he says. Could you explain the religious?
I, he's the son of Papa D. He knows what the religious schism is.
Yeah.
Everyone does.
Everyone
And
does.
right, so he like leans in close to her in bed, and she's like, "Well,
Let me tell you about
well, there's."
the
I feel
Eucharist.
like she could pull out
Honestly,
like a scroll, and the scroll on one side would be like Catholics, and she'd be like, "No," and the other side
this
is
is
like
the most
Protestants.
this is the most relatable scene in the entire movie. Like, if there was a boy who asked me to explain like religious dogma to him, I probably would have had a boyfriend in high school.
Like, this would work on me. I'm not sure it would work on very many other people.
It works on Jane because he moves in closer, and then they kiss, and then they're making out, and then they're making love to each other,
Because he
like the
actually knows what
teens.
to do.
Or so you think. So the score to The Princess Bride, mix of Shakespeare in Love, like AKA the only 6 notes of music in this movie, swell.
I love how I didn't even notice.
It's just
No
na na
clue.
na na na. That's the soundtrack of this whole movie. Na 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 na. That's it. Like it's just that. I watched it twice though. So afterwards, they're in bed, postcoital, being all snuggly together, and Guilford is like, guess what? That was also my first time. And she's like, what? And then this moves her to tears, for some reason. And for the
Because
record,
human
they're
connection moves her to tears, okay?
yeah,
Again, trauma response.
oh yeah, for sure. I was just like, there's a lot of Helena Bonham Carter and Carrie Elwes are doing such an amazing job in this movie. Like I bought it. I was just like,
Oh, they had so much chemistry. It's ridiculous.
they're so cute together. And I do want to reassure everybody, she was like 20, he was like 26. So even though she looks 11, she was an adult woman. Basically. So anyway, like now the plot can progress because these two are now completely like codependently, trauma responsively in love with each other, ride or die. And
In
they are my
honeymoon
children
phase.
and I love them. Well, here's the thing. They didn't live long enough to escape the honeymoon phase.
Exactly. If
So,
only this is how it really happened.
Yeah.
spoiler. Anyway, so like now that that's sorted, the whole like what's the trope called? Just like arranged marriage trope or whatever.
A contract relationship.
Yeah, so now that that's sorted because they love each other, a new plot line has to come in. So, and that plot line is that the arsenic treated Edward, who I forgot was in the movie and I assumed was already dead, is dying. He's like super dying now. And Papa D is like, Edward, like this poor little teen boy is dying of tuberculosis mixed with measles. And Papa D is like, write a new will making Jane your heir, or else Mary will restore your nation to potpourri.
Potpourri!
Not the potpourri.
He's screaming at this little dying child. And Edward is like, okay, I trust you. Like, I feel
Can I have
like
oxygen now?
I feel like Papa D like exposed him to tuberculosis somehow on purpose. Anyway, Papa D
No.
is so happy. He's like practically skipping out with a new will, and he literally says to the doctor, "Okay, let him die." Like,
And now we know why he's always the bad guy.
Northumberland. So, Meanwhile, back in honeymoon phase, Jane is like, well, Carrie always is like, where's the mayor and the alderman? I thought they're coming for dinner. And Jane's like, no, I'm wearing your boots. She looks so cute. She's wearing her nightgown and his like tall over the knee boots. And she's so cute. She's like, look, I have legs. Hee hee. And he's like, oh my God, I love you. Um, and she's like, she's so cute. And then he's like, what about all the food for this feast? She's like, I told the staff to give the food away to the people on the road.
Because
Okay.
now that they've had sex, now she's a liberal.
Yep. Anyway, she's so giggly and cute. She sits sideways in her chair, like in his boots. And then he's like, I forget, he's like, who is this woman? And she's like, I don't even know who I am. And it's like, of course you don't. You're like 15. And he's like, well, what do you want? If you could have any wish, what would it be? And she's like, I wrote this down. Our country to remain true to the faith of God as revealed to us in scripture.
And he's like, okay, I thought you were going to say like a pony or something.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
all right.
Anyway, Guilford is like, good, then it's done. And then he smashes the glass on the ground. And then
Which
it
is
turns
what
into
he
this whole.
wanted to do from the second he touched them.
Since he saw these glasses, he's just like, Guilford,
That his
I want to
dad
smash it.
that his dad gave to them.
Yeah.
Glasses his dad gave to them and spent a lot of money on.
Yeah. So then they go back and forth being like, what do you want? What do you want? And then like smashing a glass every time they say what they want. He says he wants a world where men are not branded or sent to slavery because they can't grow the food they need to eat. And she's like, death to the bishops and death to
He's
the
like, what?
patriarchy and the class system. And then Jane says, a world where children aren't beaten but are loved and nurtured. Smash, smash, glasses, smash the patriarchy, smash everything. This is where I suddenly wrote down, like, Helena Bonham Carter looks a lot like Ingrid Bergman, which is interesting because she sounds like Audrey Hepburn.
She had very old Hollywood vibes, and then
She-
she went to full on witch.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And Mary Shelley's Frankenstein changed her.
Mary Shelley Frankenstein, she's just like, well, here's my aesthetic for the rest of my life. Anyway, so their servant, Mrs. Ellen, comes in and she's like, why are there broken glasses all over the floor and you're wearing boots? And Jane is like, yeah, I can't, ha ha ha. And then they just start giggling and she just like curls up in Guilford's lap and they're both just like so happy.
And that was like her abusive nanny, like her parents.
Oh, yeah.
That was the abusive nanny that her parents sent with her to make sure that she stayed in line, basically.
Yeah.
For their plotting schemery.
Yeah. Oh, and then Jane is like, I want a shilling to really be worth a shilling. Like, let's stop
And I'm
inflation.
like, me too, Jane. Me
And
too.
I want eggs to be less than $8.
I'm so mad.
I want home chickens to lay eggs consistently, regardless of who the manufacturer of their feed is.
I want an end to the bird flu. I want to be able to buy lettuce.
The vibe, you know what?
Smash.
It's so true. I'm really feeling what they're feeling. I need to get a drink of water. Does anyone need to take a break? I'm gonna take some water. You guys talk.
Okay.
Talk
We can keep complaining about how expensive things are while Anne goes and calls
We can just do that. We can also see if the chat decides they have things to fill in. Otherwise, Alice and I are very good at this part.
Yes, we are. This is the second time this evening we have vamped. Well, Anne has addressed a need, either technological or hydratory.
Well, one time the microphone was falling down. We were commenting on the fact that I have a full professional podcast setup, and Anne has a microphone sitting on books.
And a jar that used to contain spaghetti. Yeah.
Okay, so we had one question, which is how did the three of us meet?
Oh.
And we were all represented by the same literary agent at first.
Yes.
And Anne and I have moved on, and Allison still is.
So Lana and you signed with that agent shortly before I did. And I remember you at that time, Twitter was a thing people used, including me. And
long ago.
You had tweeted something about like, I wrote a young adult novel that was based on the of Martin Gare, and I was like, that's the best concept for a young adult novel I've ever heard. I wish I thought of it. I need to be friends with this person.
I didn't write a mistaken identity novel. I literally wrote if you know Return of Martin Gare, my first book is basically the plot of Return of Martin Gare.
The character is called Martin.
Martin. And he's confused for his cousin who is also called Martin.
Yep. So Lana and I think like we had the same we like there's a group chat and stuff, and so but I think like and then we discovered that we both have this affinity for 1990s ABC soap operas.
Yes. Yes.
And then
That
I
was our
think I
second bonding
inserted
point.
myself into their existing thing when I found out that Anne was working on a young adult novel that was Elizabeth and Mary, Queen of Scots, set in a high school theater department. And I
Yeah.
was like, ah, someone's writing a book for me. And so I was just like, can I be friends with both of you?
And then yeah, well, and then Lana was the one who was like, you were just like, you should do a podcast, and I was like, okay, and then I started doing a podcast.
I said I should do a podcast, and I'm like, it sounds like a lot of work. And then I was talking to you, and you're like, and I said, well, you could do a podcast about this and this and this, and then you'd have that platform so you could write because you wanted to write a book about
A nonfiction book.
Caroline.
Oh, Carolina Brunswick. Yeah.
You were trying to get a story pitched about Carolina Brunswick, and you didn't have a big enough platform. It's like, well, if you want a platform like these kinds of stories on a podcast. And then she actually made the podcast, and I never made my podcast.
But then for like historical thing, like in Vulgar Piece Theater itself, like we're friends and we just talk about history stuff and other stuff all the time. But then I was like, ooh, I think I want to do like a thing on Patreon about talking about costume drama movies, because I was trying to think of like what's something I could do that. And then I was like, ooh, and I forget which of you I asked first.
Allison.
Like I asked Allison because I was like, let's do because it's come out and it's like Kit
Yeah.
Marlowe and stuff. And then I was like, oh, maybe Lana would want to be on this too. And then you both
And a
agreed.
whole
and
year
now-
later,
And now here
probably
we are.
38 hours of recording for like 12 episodes.
We've done more recording than we watched movies.
It's
Yep.
true.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And there were
Yeah.
2 movies we didn't even do our ratings for. Like, we built whole systems. I have a database. I have a database
Yeah.
of ideas for more of these.
Yeah, no, it's taken on its own life, and I'm happy to be able to share Vulgar Piece Theater, the concept, with people outside of Patreon as well. Okay, I am refreshed and back in it. So, oh right, so it's the
Just in time for the montage.
the montage.
Montage.
So basically, Jane and Guilford they go riding horses, and she's like, "Oh, I can't get on the horse in my skirt." So then she's like, "I have an
And
idea."
God forbid he help her.
Yeah. She is 2 apples tall. Of course, she can't get on a horse.
Like, at least get her a stool or something. And then it's like it's Western saddle, not English saddle. So like, even if she did get up there, she wouldn't have been able to ride it. She's wearing the wrong skirt.
Well, and soon she's not wearing a skirt at all because she goes inside and comes back out wearing little pantaloons.
Little baby ones. They're so little.
They're so tiny.
And they're black.
She's so small, and the pantaloon, like the bubble of the pantaloon, is so little. She looks so cute.
Scandalicious.
Yeah, and then then she can ride like astride or whatever it's called. So then the 2 of them, anyway, montage. Pantaloons montage. So they just like frolic. They're just like in the fields, they're lying on the grass, they paddle down the river, they're just like kissing. There's this really weird part where she's lying down and he like fans her hair out all around her head, which I remember Kendall Jenner did a picture like that on Instagram a couple of years ago. My the subtitles just say like majestic singing, and it's like the choir is going metal, like they're screaming na 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 over this love montage. Anyway, the 2 lovers go into a barn. Was this supposed to have all happened in a day? I don't know.
Yes.
Quite a
No,
day.
it's actually 2 months, but it's actually a day, but it's really 2 months, but it's only a day.
Yeah. So then they go into a barn. But there's a family of beggars there, and Jane is like, "No, stay. It's cool. We're social reformers now." But the beggars flee. And so then they just
I no
like
longer
chill.
resent you.
Yeah. So they just like lay back in the straw. And they're like, "Why do you think our evil parents made us marry each other?" And Guilford's like, "Obviously, there's some sort of scheme, but I guess actually, no." Jane says like, "It feels almost like some kind of," and I thought in my head, scheme. And she's like, a scheme. I'm like,
Yes.
it is a scheme.
It is a scheme.
Then Jane is like, can the strong never be good? And Guildford is like, let's go away somewhere together where parents' shitty schemes can't get in our way. And I feel like the answer is going to his family's Virginia plantation, Lana.
No, it's not. Running away to Scotland, maybe?
Maybe. I don't, Ireland. Um,
No, their family schemes will absolutely find them in Ireland.
okay, true. Maybe like Portugal.
Portugal. They
Anyway,
can't go to
so
Spain because you know what's in Spain right now.
Potpourri.
Sweden. Go to Sweden.
yes, go vibe with Christina.
Yes.
Would they vibe? I don't know. They're both such assholes.
Both a lot.
They would both have very strong opinions at each other.
They would be the
and it's
best of friends or the worst of enemies, and
It could go
nothing in
either
between.
way.
Yeah. Okay, so cut to Papa D is yelling at advisors. The advisors are like, we can't make Jane the queen. That is treason. And he's like, but then the realm will be restored to potpourri. Like, chat. They say this word a lot.
He
he
says
also-
Every
the word a
time
lot.
he is spewing spit all over, and his
Yeah.
eyes are bulging, and it's a lot.
He grabs a
Potpourri.
piece of the scenery and just starts. Ah.
What? So he also says, so the realm will be restored to potpourri and the conjurers of Rome. And also all the properties that we got from the previous king will be taken away from us. So then that's more winning argument. The guy's like, oh yeah, like Jane can be the queen. So Papa D is like, okay, the king is dying. Like, let's go get Mary and Elizabeth to their brother's bedside. But then a guy is like, they're gone. And Frances, who's the mom, is like, what? How do they know? It's like everyone knows everything. There's spies everywhere. Like, you
You're not
dumbasses.
quiet.
You've
been
been yelling
scheming-
potpourri for 5 minutes. They heard you.
They can hear potpourri down in the town.
They smell the potpourri. So anyway, I just wrote here, like, I like that Frances is like getting a chance to do some shit vis-a-vis scheming, because this movie easily could have been the two dads. But in history, Frances was the schemer, and so I just appreciate that for her.
Well, and Elizabeth pre-Mary Elizabeth is like, I'm just out of here. I don't want you to have ever known I existed.
Yeah.
And if you don't remember how to find me, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Which is, I like that at this point in the movie, it's kind of overlapping with the beginning of the Kate Blanchett Elizabeth. So you can have like a Tudor cinematic universe in which Joseph
TCU.
Fiennes is playing Robert Dudley and William Shakespeare. Anyway, so they're like, okay, Mary obviously knows about the Jane situation, but like we can't not do it, so let's do it. And Frances is like, long live Queen Jane, who is at the moment nude in bed in silhouette by the moonlight with her lover, Guildford. And it's really like just the kind of like teenager nudity reminds me of that.
It's Robert Dudley. Like Robert Dudley.
Yeah,
Oh, where we were 2 hours ago, Lana?
Guildford's brother.
He's that Robert Dudley.
Robert
That's
Dudley, the
why
voice
we
of
were
reason.
talking about that.
Well-known voice of reason. Robert
Everybody's
Dudley.
important during this era. It's all the same thing. No, but like my brain just like, I have a little trauma with this movie. So sorry. I'm better at this, I swear.
No, here's the thing. There's a lot of people and they're all called Robert. This is a common
And there's
issue.
a lot of people called Dudley.
It's true.
They're all called Dudley. That's why I call him Papa D. Yeah.
He looks
So
nothing like Robert
Joseph Fiennes.
Joseph Fiennes. He looks
No,
nothing
but
like Joseph Fiennes.
No, but the Robert Dudley in this movie is handsome and has dark hair. So
This is true.
Which is basically all you need.
And is a little judgy.
so yeah. So
Okay,
Guildford
sorry,
and Jane
back
are.
to where you were.
No, it's fine. We've got Helena Bonham
I've caught
Carter.
up on the story.
Lana's up to speed. Helena Bonham Carter is having her first topless scene in the movie. Because Guildford and Jane are just they're just constantly
think
nude.
only.
No, there's two.
Oh,
Is there?
They're
Okay.
also nude before they're killed.
oh, that's right.
Right.
Um. Anyway, and they're like, okay, here's the plan. We're gonna run away from here and just be like freelance hippies, and just like I don't know, food not bombs. We're gonna invent it. Like, let's just like go, fuck the police. Let's do it. Um. But someone knocks at the door. They come downstairs, and it's Beard number one. Every time he's in the movie, I'm like, Beard number one again. Okay. Um. Still don't know who you are. And he's like, you need to come back with us to London. So they arrive back in London. So Patrick Stewart, Papa D, and like lots of extras and big furry robes are all just standing around looking intimidating. And Papa D is like, Edward is dead. But he wrote this like last minute will. And your Grace is the new queen. And he looks right at Jane, and Jane looks behind her like, who is? Like, who's the queen? And then she's like, me, me. Um, and
And they
then
have
for
them
the
separated too. Like
yeah,
Guilford wasn't even there, so she's springing on the. Oh man, I was so mad at that scene.
and she again is like, I can't, I won't, just like what she said when she refused to marry him in the first place. Like this is her like Jane thing. Guildford, like devoted himbo, tries to go to her, but he is stopped. And she's just like, I don't want to be the queen, but they're like, do it, and so she does. And then she sits on the throne, and they put this weird audio effect on where Papa D has this weird like Palpatine from Star Wars kind of sound where he's like, "Put on the crown, put it on." Um, and she's like, "I can't, I won't." And then this mustache guy, I don't know who that is, puts it on her head, and everybody kneels. And this is interesting to me because I don't remember a lot about her story, but I remember the big deal was she put the crown on her own head. That was the treason. But in this movie, someone else puts it on her head.
No, because she puts it on
Um,
her head later.
okay, true. Um, and Jane just screams, Gilbert! And she like, take me out of here. And she runs to him, and he's like, everyone get out. Because he like this is where I love their love story and him just being like they're like everyone in the world is awful and we are gonna be there for each other, and they are. Um and
Someone in they didn't get her up speed on is because she wasn't important. They didn't they didn't want her to have a chance to run away. And it didn't matter if she knew she was going to be queen or not. She didn't actually have any power. That was their power. They were going to
yeah.
use it through her. So no, you don't tell somebody you're about to completely screw their life over on the way. You do it once they're locked in the room.
Yeah. um so for a brief minute Jane doubts Gilbert. She's like, did you know about this? And he's like, fuck you, no. But then he's like, okay, no, calm down,
We're good.
Gilbert.
We're good.
Breathing exercises. And he's like, no, of course I didn't. And then he's like, you and I, we're like a coin, like with a head on one side and a Lana on the other side, because he's all feelings and she's all book learning, but together they stay untarnished, is what he says.
It's so cute that he thinks he has any power at all.
Baby.
His power
So
is
cute.
he has feelings, is his power.
But he honestly thinks, oh well, she's queen now, so she's in charge. It's like, oh no, honey.
Yeah. Remember the puppet from earlier?
Remember the deer?
Yeah. The strong can still be good, he says. And then he's like, I don't care if I'm king, but I want you to be queen so we can like bring socialism. So then she sits back on the throne looking cute as a button in the crown. Like, I can't overemphasize how cute she is in this movie. She's so cute.
But
True.
that's where she puts the crown on her own head.
Yes. So that's the treason right there. So then Papa D and the other men come out and they kneel to her, and she's like, we, the royal we, want a real shilling.
Fuck
And they're
inflation.
like, yes, that's
Lady
how
Jane
economies
Grey,
work.
2024.
That's exactly how economies work.
Yeah.
The queen says we want one, and then they do. Presidents, they decide they don't want the economy to be good, so they just say it and then it stops.
Well, you know what makes the economy good is if you just print a whole bunch of more money. I think that worked really well in Weimar Republic, Germany.
In the Roman Empire, that worked great
just make
too.
more money. Anyway, so I'm sure you're all dying to know, but how are Jane and Guilford going to get from this palace to the other palace? Don't worry, a boat.
We're gonna watch every movement of that boat. All 12 people rowing that boat are gonna get extended screen
But they
time.
but they stayed on the boat, and that's what's important.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause I've watched 2 things where people jumped
Oh,
out of the Thames, and I had to go to Anne with my big feelings about you do not go into the Thames, not
Didn't Ben
without
Franklin used to
antiseptic,
swim in the Thames?
antibiotic.
you don't do that in 1533. You don't do that in 2023. You don't do that
Nope.
in 1985. No, no.
Just do not.
That's like short tangent. But if there's still listeners or watchers here from chatters
Oh,
from Halifax, where I'm from, um, growing up, there's a harbor there, obviously, and like the sewage just would raw go into the harbor. And so everyone knew there. It's just like you don't go in the harbor. Like there's people who I knew who took like sailing lessons, and they'd say like, "Oh yeah, you get just like stains on your shirt from like the water." Um, and if you fell in, you had to get like a full round of like injections and stuff. And then briefly, like 10 years ago, there's a mayor who was like, "I'm going to clean up the harbor, and it'll be safe to swim." And everyone's like, "No." And then he did, but then like the next day, the sewage treatment plant broke, and anyway, so tourists are like, "Oh, let's go dip our toes in the water," and people who live there are just like, "No," like,
Don't do
no,
it.
like it's just like raw
and
feces and like syringes.
so from the chat, must not be from around here when we see people touching the harbor water.
This is how
It's
I feel every time I see someone kayaking in the Chicago River, and I'm like, no, get out, walk around, don't do this. It's
Stop
not that
touching
good.
that.
Don't touch it.
yeah.
Don't you
So,
know where that's been?
but like the Thames, I
The
can't.
Thames. Like that's like you can't clean that enough. That's 2,000 years of sewage.
Yeah.
It was biologically dead in the 70s. They're just like they're really proud of the fact that it's no longer biologically dead finally. That's not clean. That's just no longer biologically dead. That means there's some amount of oxygen in it at this point.
Hmm.
They once had to build a whole sewer system so that it did not smell bad in Parliament.
What was the thing you watched where the person went swimming in the Thames?
Okay, so the first one was the people at the wedding, or those people at the wedding, or something like it. It stars Kristen Bell. She's going to her half sister's wedding in England, and for some godforsaken reason, literally, I mean that literally, uh, one of the bridesmaids rents a hot tub on the Thames. And they're all like in swimsuits in a hot tub in the Thames, and then wacky antics ensue and they fall in. Everybody which like yes, that's a really good way to ruin your that one. And then in Lockwood and Company, they have to escape. Like literally in this case, it's be killed or possibly die in the Thames. And of course, in Lockwood and Company, they're in an alternate timeline where technology didn't advance past the 70s, which means that is still a biologically dead
Biologically
river.
dead. Yeah.
So like, and so my husband has this list of things that make me go on rants, like incorrect Washington D.C. by Washington D.C. geography, and now he has added people being in the Thames to that list because I have my feelings are too big.
If anyone in the chat is from London, I think they would be just as horrified. Um.
I'm getting some water. Continue.
Okay. So basically, Jane, they're like, okay, right. So they go down. They go down the Thames. They don't fall in the water.
Do not
And
fall in the water.
then if you're like, but how are they going to get inside the castle for the coronation? Don't worry. They slowly process down a hallway.
Slowly.
A huge crowd of people is outside to watch her be declared queen. Papa D is like shitting himself with villainous excitement. He's just like, oh my god, my plan. Ah. So the like 9,000 extras are there from the previous scene at the opening. And he's like, guess who the new he's like announcing to them. He's like, guess who the new queen is? It's Jane Grey. And the crowd is like, who? What? 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 Like zero enthusiasm, much confusion.
When did he marry a Grey?
Anyway, so Papa D walks into the like counselor's chamber, and the other old white men applaud him literally, and he's like, bad news. Mary has declared herself queen, and the men are like, well, let's send an army against her. And they're like, Patrick Stewart, how long would it take you to get an army ready? And he was like, 3 days. But then Jane is the queen, and she's like, listen up, you assholes. I am 4 feet tall, and you're gonna listen to me. She's like, here are my demands, and they are as follows. She doesn't break a wine goblet with each demand, but they are the wine goblet demands. So she's like, 1, call a parliament to repeal the laws about branding beggars. Instead, return all the lands and properties Henry VIII took from the monasteries and return them to the normal people.
Right.
Redistribution of wealth.
Okay.
And they're like, that's exactly why you're queen, is so we don't do that.
Yeah, 3. She's like, okay, endow a school to teach the poor using basically Montessori methods. Because she's like, treat the children with kindness. And I'm just like, Montessori school, got it. And then she's like, and the children will be treated kindly and gently and not abused. And the person in charge of this will be my father, Patrick Stewart.
The worst
My
dad
abusive father, Patrick Stewart.
Who doesn't care about anything and isn't even a good schemer.
Yeah.
Makes bad choices, Patrick Stewart.
Yeah. So Papa D is like, actually, here's a letter that we need you to sign because your job is just to sign letters of things we decide. And this letter says that Patrick Stewart is going to go arrange an army to attack Mary. And Jane is like, no, he has to stay here to open the Montessori school.
And he's like, no, I'm really good at war. Please let me war, please.
No, and then Guilford is like, but you need someone to lead the army. How about my father, Papa D?
Because
And
I
Papa
don't
D
wanna
is
look at
like,
him.
and Papa D is just like, what? Because that's not his deal.
This is chaos.
And so Papa D is sent to go oversee the army that is going to like bring down Mary. Frances like shoots him a look, and she's like, I can control him, which is like what Papa D said about Guildford before, where it's like, ooh. They thought these two would be their puppets or marionettes, but they did not predict these 2 teen nerds would fall in love and start wanting to implement socialism. But here we
What
are.
happens when you let your kids out of your sight? They just start socialism.
Yeah.
They do that.
When you read
Everybody
Plato
knows-
in the original Greek and then meet a couple of like zombies, that's it.
He's a bad influence on her. She's not an alcoholic. She's a socialist.
So Frances goes to yell at Jane. She's like, you little asshole. And Jane is like, well, I'm the queen, so whatever.
Yeah.
I want to mention just here in costuming, Frances is wearing a long black furry cloak covered with little silver dangly bits. So like little dangly earrings almost all over it. So when she swirls her cloak out of the room, it's
great.
really good. It's
excellent
great.
swirling.
Like when we get to our cloak swirling category, like that
We
was
have
a
a
little
couple
cloak
of
swirl
really good
with
It
with
approaches
dangly
Papa
bits.
Mozart.
Yeah, and Amadeus chat, if you haven't listened to our episode about that, Amadeus, the cloak swirling on that is next level. Like it's
It is the originator of the concept.
It's true.
It's the cloak swirling Amadeus memorial category. So, if you're wondering how is it going with Papa D leading the army through a series of streets and then out a gate, we see that happen in real time
Every bit
for
of it.
approximately 25 minutes. It's just like, well,
And
the
that's
man
the only effective thing he did in that war.
Mhm.
Papa D isn't even wearing a helmet, which seems foolish. But otherwise, how do you know it's him? So fair. Anyway, so
He
later
could be
that
shouting potpourri the entire time down the street.
then I would
Then
know.
we know it was him.
Or throwing potpourri. So Jane and Guildford that night. This is like night 1 of her reign. Her 9-day reign. So they're just relaxing in the boudoir. she's reading him aloud Protestant theology. She's like, "Let me tell you about the schism of the religion,"
I
and he's
know
just
how
like,
that turns
"Yes,
you on, Guilford.
please
Schism
read it in
talk.
the original Greek."
The John Knox School of Seductory.
Mm. Also, Nina is
um,
back. She came to say hello.
oh, is she?
Is she back?
Oh my god, so cute. Hepburn is just like, she's fuck this, and I respect it. Um. Anyway, so next day she orders. I forget. She read something in a book about like free people from prison, and the next day she's like, abolish the prisons. And I wrote here,
Defund the
Gen Z.
police. Hashtag Jay
Gen
Gray.
Z is in control. Like Jane is here to abolish prisons, to redistribute wealth. Like this is what she's doing on her second day reigning. Asterix. In the movie, that's what she's doing.
In the movie, that's what she's doing.
In real life, that was not what was happening.
Guilford had never heard of socialism.
No.
Or
Like
being nice to people.
Guilford and Jane practically never even met each other in real life. Okay, so then the choir sings majestically again as these two shirtless, sweaty guys
Shirtless
in aprons,
blacksmiths.
shirtless blacksmiths with aprons on for safety. They're smelting a coin, and what it is a real silver shilling with Jane's face on it. I love a coin minting moment. I don't know if I've ever seen a coin minting moment in a movie, but this is just like a little fake coin they're making for her for pretend, right?
Basically.
Yeah.
I mean, it's commemorative. It's not legal tender. It's a commemorative coin.
But
No,
it's
they're
her
not.
shilling.
It's like what you can buy on late night TV.
Yeah, it's
Like
like,
one
you
of
know
those
those things.
plates
American
with
Eagle
Ronald
on the
Reagan's face
backside.
on it.
You know, like when you
What?
get a penny and you smush it and it like puts a pattern on it. It's kind of like that. Yeah. So anyway, he makes her coin.
I forget
And
that
then
Anne's from Canada and doesn't know about the commemorative coins with American eagles on the back and like an important American moment on the front.
are they fake coins?
Yeah, they're $20 coins that are not legal tender.
You can
But
buy
you
them on late night TV usually.
Late night TV. That's what they sell you.
and you
on
just
late night
like
TV.
Have them.
You're
frame
old
them. Okay.
and you think that they're important for your descendants. You're
What I will
easily
say
fooled.
about Canadian coins, are you familiar with the loonie and the toonie in Canada? You know the two.
I'm from small Canada.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I know what a loony and a toonie are, and I
Right.
know
So,
what a timbit is.
I
so
grew
you know
up
what?
down the street from a Tim Hortons. We are all little Canada.
Okay, we're good. We're good. Okay, so the toonie, you know, it's like the two colors. So when the Queen Elizabeth II just died, they made a commemorative coin that's like silver and gold, but also black.
That's
So
so
it's like a
metal.
special, but that's like currency. Like you can get those in change. But I feel like I have not gotten one in change.
Are you gonna be stuck with Chuck on your money?
Yes,
Oh,
but
I'm
not this year
sorry.
because the money is designed like 2 years in advance or something.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's pretty gross. That was like my first thought. I was just like, "Ugh, I don't want this like gross like tabloid. It's like it's akin to having like John Travolta on your money or something. It's like, what's this guy doing there?
I'm glad we don't have that where we put our presidents on our money.
Actually, I think what's happening though in Canada is they're more and more replacing, like they're putting like notable people from history on the money instead of like the actual queen. So by the
Yep.
time it's time for Charles' money, it might be like, oh, actually, there's not a spot for you because we have these like
Whoops.
famous Japanese, you know, inventors or whatever.
Theoretically, we're getting Harriet Tubman on our money, and I want that very badly.
Yeah, that's been a long
Replacing
time
That's
Andrew
ago.
Jackson.
Why not on our list? I'm sorry, I got to add Tubman to our list.
That'll be an interesting one because I think it gets a lot wrong. I haven't seen it, but I read people complaining about it.
Do you think
Okay,
we're going to
coin.
hit the 4-hour mark on this podcast, or do you think
I
we can
don't.
do it in 3.5?
I don't. Well, here's the thing. Like, she's gonna be deposed really soon.
Yeah,
So,
like it's basically over.
okay. So, coin minting. The Spanish ambassador comes in and she basically blows him off. He's like, "Why did you want to talk to me about Spain?" And she's like, "Because, like, I'm focusing on local. You know, what's it called? Like, grounds worth. What's the word?
Grassroots.
Grassroots. American
Groundsworth activism.
Groundsworth activism. we're looking
Yes.
at, like, harm
Yes.
Yeah.
reduction, like, I don't
Mhm.
have time for Spain, also, you're a bunch of Catholics over there, popery. And the Spanish ambassador is like, "Mm." I wrote, "No mas, no
Look,
quiero." I don't
I
know.
am not marrying Philip. Other people can marry Philip. I am not marrying Philip.
She's very much just like, "I have a husband already, so adios."
Yeah, but that does not stop him,
No, it doesn't.
No.
Fair.
especially with 15-year-olds.
I forget if I've done so with this asshole Philip. I should if
I
I
think you
haven't.
have.
See,
If
and
you
I forget.
haven't, you need to.
Okay, so then the next scene is hilarious. So I forget who it is, Papa D or somebody's coming up the stairs, and just woman after woman starts coming down the stairs carrying these huge dresses. And he's like, "What's going on?" And they're like, "Oh, Jane is donating all of her clothes to the poor."
I feel like if that was really a thing, I would definitely know about it.
What would the poor what are they gonna do with their like what do you think they're gonna wear them?
I mean, they're
These
gonna
like
sell it for a lot of money, so it's not like a
Sell it for a
terrible
lot of
idea. Because you can
and it,
sell that fabric for, like, bank.
yeah. Yeah, no, they're very expensive outfits, but anyway, they're just carrying down every dress she's ever been given. She's got the best of intentions, Jane. Asterix in the movie.
This is a very
Um
different Jane.
Yes.
So then the royal coin maker arrives and he's like, "Look, it's a real shilling." And Jane and Guildford twirl and hug. They're just like, "Wee." Look at us
We have
changing the
fixed
world.
the economy.
Hooray!
Go us.
Okay, so then Robert Dudley, that Robert Dudley, um, Lana, you know Robert Dudley?
Yeah, yeah. No,
Yep,
I believe we've had several conversations about Robert Dudley.
he's in the movie, Robert Dudley. This movie's version of him. He returns, I guess he's been off with Papa D, and he's like, ugh. He tells Guilford, he's like, so
That did not go
so
well.
everyone is
No.
deserting. The army is now all supporting Mary. Ugh, we need more troops. And also, Papa D is hated in Norfolk for reasons. Maybe Lana or Allison will know. Like the
'Cause he's
Dudleys are
a
just like,
shit, I
Everywhere.
assume.
They were Catholic. That's why they're harboring Mary.
yeah. I don't
She's
know. It sounds like
not
there's some sort
popular
of.
where there's Catholics.
It just
No.
seems like. So, like, they sent Papa D to lead this army where they probably should have sent Patrick Stewart. But it seems like the Dudleys maybe have some sort of bad history up there in general. So Guildford
Wait,
really just sent his father off to fail.
Yeah.
basically, she's in Catholic territory, and then
Right.
they sent Mr. I hate popery to Catholic territory. They're not going to be nice to him.
Okay, true. Yeah. It was that guy going there. It's true. I forgot there was potpourri land up there. Okay.
The
Anyway.
popery did not like anti-popery.
So anyway, Guildford is like, hey boy. So he goes, Jane is still in her nightgown in bed. And he's like, Jane, can you like come down to the like counselor's private chambers? And she's like, well, I have to get dressed. He's like, you really don't. So he comes down and all the old white men have now also deserted. They're also now on Team Mary. The fickle bitches, I wrote.
She gave away her clothes.
Yeah.
That's
Now
true.
she's
What
like,
else you gonna
all
get
I
for
have is
this?
this nightgown. So then Jane, and this is like a sad scene because she's like, oh well, guess I was a queen for 9
We
days.
tried.
She makes a joke
Well,
about like I didn't even get the
easy
keys or
go,
something.
easy go.
Yeah, she's just
Isn't
like
she still in the tower? Like, she literally just never leaves the tower at this point.
she's not in the tower yet. She's still like being the queen.
Yeah, but she was in the tower awaiting her official coronation.
Oh, maybe yeah, you're right. So she just
So
moves from
she,
one part to another part. But she's just like
she goes
easy
from the
come,
nice
easy
part
go.
to the bad part.
Yeah. Well, she doesn't know yet. At this point, she
Yeah.
just starts blowing out the candles on the table, and she and Guildford repeat their like wishes from before, except instead of smashing glasses, they just like blow candles. And then Patrick Stewart comes in with some exposition. He's like, "Hey, guess what?" Well, actually, no. He comes in, rips a tapestry down, and is like, "Papa D has been arrested as a traitor, and Mary is now queen." And Jane is so cute. She's like, "May we go home now, father?" And Patrick Stewart
No,
is just
Jane,
like,
we may not.
No, I'm gonna fix this.
"We'll see." No promises. So the fact that thought that she could just be like, well, I was queen for 9 days, tried to implement socialism, didn't work. Like, now I'll just go off and like,
I love that he ditched her. Like, oh, you stay here. I'm gonna go check on this. And like,
yeah, let
literally
me,
never arrested her. I mean, he ends up dead, but like, never arrested or anything.
yeah. Um, anyway, so then if you're like, what was it? How did Jane's parents feel having to move their belongings out of the castle? Don't worry, we see them carrying things and walking sadly across the grounds. Jane and Guilford, I guess, fell asleep on the council table. Um, and
I have
then a
to
group
assume they had sex on the Privy Council table after
I
she was a queen.
can't
That was my
not. I think they had sex in every room in the castle.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. They had
Um,
9 days, that was enough time.
they're both teenagers, like, they have a lot of energy.
That's why he was getting her, because it was empty and it's their chance to get that
Yeah,
room done.
yeah.
Come on, don't get dressed.
So, a group comes in to arrest her, and then for the third time in this movie, she says, "I can't, I won't," and she like literally tries to run away, but then she's captured for the third time.
My watch just told me it's time to go to bed.
Well, she's being arrested. Like it's just downhill from here.
It's gonna be fine. No, I'm good.
Okay. Jane and Guilford are separated and put in separate cells, but Jane still has the single shilling as like a souvenir. Papa D is brought in as a traitor, and he's given a cell to share with some other people who I think are Guildford and Robert and a third guy who's maybe the other son, but it might be Beard, number 1 or 3.
Yeah, but that might be the other son.
I know, because there's another son. Anyway, so
And
the
he's like
Mary entered.
older.
It was like an older guy with a beard, so I was like, is that a character who's been in this movie this whole time? Perhaps.
Who's to say?
I have face blindness of men. So in movies. So anyway, so Mary enters on a horse, and all the peasants cheer for her. They're happy. It's like the most Catholic procession of all time. There's just like she's followed by priests. Her ladies in waiting are next to her, all like giving the sign of the cross over and over. Just so you know, it's like popery has arrived. Um, and she's like, "I'm gonna release prisoners, but unlike Jane, I'm gonna release Catholic prisoners. England is Catholic again. Like huzzah!" And then someone tells Papa D, like, "I heard that if you like convert, then they won't kill you." And Papa D is like,
This
"Great."
son of a bitch literally goes, "Well, let's go."
Potpourri.
It's incredible.
And then he gives the sign of the cross too. He's like, "Oh,
No!
here we go." Like now he's like, "You know what I love? Potpourri."
Famously
He's,
on
like,
record,
talking
big
about
fan
it
of
all
potpourri.
the time.
So he's just a piece of shit in a new way. Anyway, so Jane is like sad. She's just like pacing around her cell. She hugs a pillow. I think it's nice she has a pillow. But the main thing she's
I'm just imagining Shakespeare at home going, "This asshole, I'm putting him in so much fanfic."
Northumberland.
Fucking Northumberland.
Every play I write, he's gonna suck.
Worst.
So anyway, Jane is sad in her room and she just whispers to herself like Guildford, like she misses her guy. And then we see Guilford is being brought into a different room where Papa D is sitting with some like signed paperwork that I guess is the paperwork being like, "I love popery, I'm Catholic now, Pope forever." And Guilford is like, "How dare you betray the religion?" And Papa D is basically like, "A living dog is better than a dead lion," which I thought was a good line. And then he also, mysteriously to me, is like, "Guildford, when I sent you to marry Jane, I thought you'd be my puppet. I didn't think that you would, like the most truest love story of all time would emerge. Like even I am moved by your pure and true love with Jane."
Okay.
Basically.
Because,
All right,
yeah,
man.
why not?
I don't know. It's not the first time that someone says something like this, but this movie is just being like, wow, like they're, like Guilford and Jane, like I ship it. Obviously, I love them together. They don't need to have the huge orchestral swelling every time they do anything. They don't need to have other characters being like, "I've never seen such a true love story." Like, we buy it because
We
the
get it.
actors,
We're
the
paying
actors are good at
How
acting the
else will
lines
we
were
know that
written,
they love each other?
and it's the most purest and truest love that has ever loved. Anyway, so cut to Mary sitting on her throne. Jane comes to visit, and Mary is like, "Hey, I got you. Like, we're gonna have to find you guilty of treason, but I won't execute you because you're my cousin. It's cool." And then she's like, "Come walk with me."
This
And
is
they
the
go.
part where I'm like, hashtag not my Mary.
This part is really bad. So there's a portrait of Philip of Spain, And Mary looks at the portrait and she's like, "Do you see this guy? I'm gonna marry him. Isn't he so handsome? I love him." And then she is like, "Jane, your pure love story with Guildford has moved even me."
Even me, Princess Mary.
I'm gonna marry this hot guy who's gonna be so nice to me.
I hope that my love with Philip will be like you and Guildford. Basically, she says.
It's
It
gonna
is.
be great, no problems. Everyone's gonna like each other.
It is
He will
ridiculous.
not marry 2 other women. It will not happen.
And later on in this movie, Jane says to Guildford, she's like, "The way that Mary looked at the portrait, it's like how I looked at you." Like, no, like she's looking at a portrait of a man she's never met. It's not the same as you looking at your like trauma bonded boyfriend. But anyway, oh yeah, so she's like, "Jane, I'm not going to execute you." And Jane is like, "Speaking of not executing me, can you also not execute Guildford, the person who you just said you find our love story so moving?" And Mary's like, no. Anyway, so then the Spanish ambassador comes in and he's like, "Jane," like that person who like didn't care about him before. And then he and Mary speak in Spanish, and they're speaking like Spain Spanish with like the lisp, which was a nice touch. Anyway, he's like,
That's what
"Yeah."
they speak in England, though. It's not like here.
They speak Spain Spanish in England.
They speak Spain Spanish. Like when they think of Spanish, they think of Spain Spanish,
Hmm.
and they do not think of Mexican Spanish or South American Spanish.
That makes total sense, but I just never
Central
thought about
American
it.
Spanish.
Anyway, so the Spanish ambassador is like, "Okay, wasn't that the usurper who tried to be queen instead of you?" And Mary's like, "Yes." And the
Sure
guy
was.
is like, "Okay, so if you want to marry Philip, his one condition is you have to kill Lady Jane Grey."
Like, but the Pope said no.
So anyway, Jane is moping around in her cell, and then Guildford shows up. They've moved into a couple's cell for teenage,
The bridal suite of the tower.
the bridal suite, apparently. Which
Someone on the chat said that Mary was the blueprint for Tinder.
Yes.
Mary
She
is
swiped
being
right on that painting really, really hard.
she is kind of being catfished also in a way.
She's also being catfished.
Yeah, so now like there's a lot of things in this
Not as
movie
bad
like
as Anne of Cleves, but still.
My girl. I love Anne of Cleves so much.
you're gonna do a series where Anne of Cleves solves murder mysteries, right, Allison?
I had grand thoughts of that. I haven't figured it out yet because I don't know how to write murder mysteries. So if anyone wants to do it for me, I would mostly just like read that.
They're a
Yeah,
formula. You can figure it out. I believe.
There's
you.
a series where Margaret Beaufort solves murder mysteries,
Ooh. Into it.
which is I feel like she was busy doing other stuff, but apparently she also cozy solves mysteries.
Allison would be amazing at naming cozy murder
I
mysteries.
just want to name Elizabethan cozy mysteries. I don't want to write them, but I have so many titles.
Allison is so good at puns.
What you do is you write a contemporary book, and then you have that character reading cozy mystery novels.
There you
Then
go.
you can put the titles in.
There you go, Lana.
Allison is the one. Whenever I'm like, I need a name for a season or a something, like Allison came up with the Jane Grey season, How to Lose a Queen in 9 Days. That was Allison's idea. And timely to this movie.
His.
Okay, so they're in this lover's cell. The music swells, they hug and hug. Then they have a prison style love montage. Apparently they're allowed to go for walks together. The 5 notes play very loudly. Anyway, this is where Jane is like, "Mary loves Philip. When she looked at the portrait, it's like when I look at you." And then they kiss, and they're just like, "At least we're together and not being executed." That's nice.
Because forget our politics. Like,
that was
forget
whole
our
socialist
deeply held
dream.
belief.
No.
She loves Philip. That will solve everything.
Because they relate to each other as women in love. And that supplants all the scheming, all the popery. Like,
That really pissed me off.
Philip
I'm sorry.
Philip.
That really pissed me off. And they were just like, "Oh, Mary, you know the one thing she was famous for, doing anything for Philip. She had no morals of her own."
I will
Really
concur.
steamed my rice is all I'm saying.
This part is hashtag not my Mary. Like, when she showed up earlier and she was hugging her and giving her the over the shoulder,
That was
like, hissing
yes.
the threats, that was my Mary. This Mary was just all like, I'm just like a sad spinster who loves this man. Meh." I
No.
don't care for that.
I think we do agree on Mary then. We
Okay, okay, good.
I was
I'm
so messed up by this part that colored my whole opinion.
I'm glad to clarify that. Okay, so then I just wrote this
What is
down because it was in the closed captioning, and I'm like, maybe this matters. So Patrick Stewart says he's going to Leicester and then to Coventry and then to London. That's his route. Just if you were wondering, his route. He
Are we
says he's
gonna
going to join
watch
it,
him go to all 3 of those places in the
If you
and
meantime?
say
then
it,
we
you don't
do.
have to show it. Oh,
Yeah.
wait, no.
So he's like, I'm going to go there to join up with the rebel armies to try and like get Jane back on the throne again, because he's had a character arc where now he wants to make things right with Jane.
Which is not the way
Or
to do it, Patrick Stewart. You could
or
just
he's
not.
making it worse
Oh,
by still trying to get his own way.
yeah. Oh no, he is directly responsible for her being executed later on.
Exactly.
So Francis reasonably is like, please, like, you and I are not dead. So let's just like lean into that and not raise rebel armies. But he's like, no, there
He's like,
cannot be a Spanish king.
he's like, but we were plotting. We had a plan.
And Francis is much more like adaptable vis-a-vis plans. And he's just like, he says, I owe it to our daughter. She has need of me. And Francis is like, okay, big guy. See you later. This is my notes, chat. Horses ride away. Cut to nighttime. Other horses. Jane and Guildford are playing chess in jail because the deluxe honeymoon suite has a chess set, apparently. Guildford is like, so I overheard from one of the jailers some exposition that I will tell you now, which is that some of the rebels reached London. Apparently, your father was leading them. And Jane is like, why? Why is he doing that? And Guildford is like, he's making amends, I guess. Oh, but then Jane is like, but who are they? Whose name do they cry? And he's like, they cry like long live Queen Jane. And she's like, shit, that's bad.
That is not good.
No, like raising an army in my name is not good for me. Anyway, so then Mary is told by the ambassador Philip won't sail over to marry her unless he gets confirmation that Jane Grey is dead. Mary is like, what if they become Catholic? Like, what if Jane and Guildford become Catholic? Then do I have to kill them? And the ambassador is like, it's worth a try. So, someone called Sir John, I guess I wrote it down because someone said his name, comes in to report Jane's dad has been arrested because the rebels showed up for Queen Jane. Then they cut to court. Jane and Guildford both found guilty of high treason. Jane will be beheaded within the tower, and Guildford will be beheaded on Tower Hill. So, and they're separated. No, I was going to say they're separated. Oh no, they are separated in jail again. So Jane watches birds fly in the sky, which is a new metaphor that it's going to pay off later. And then a guy comes to see her. It's the no beard guy from the opening, Dr. Feckenham, the Queen's confessor. And he's like, are you going to be Catholic now? And they brought Guildford in, but they said Guildford can't talk. And the implications, Guildford has already agreed to become Catholic. But of course, she won't convert. That is like her whole deal, Lady Jane Grey, in this movie and in real life. Protestantism, murdering herself. It's her vibe. And she's like, I won't do it. And then they leave. And then she's there with Guildford. And he's like, I also didn't convert. They just tried to trick you. And then she's like, that's fine, because we'll both get into the kingdom of heaven together. So actually, we will be together forever. So, like, this is fine. Beard number 3 delivers a letter to a new character, Beard number 4. The confessor, Dr. Feckenham, is like, oh, the letter is like, execute them ASAP. And Dr. Feckenham is like, can we give them just like a few hours? Can they just like fuck each other one last time effectively? And Beard number 3 is like, okay. So then this is
They do
the
have
second...
the most pure and true love story I have ever heard. We should let them fuck one more time.
Everyone says so. So Jane and Guilford sit topless, both of them, in front of the fire. Like literally no shirts, but like skirts and or pants on. So just
Mhm.
nude from
Just
the
tits
waist
out.
up.
Heavy petting.
Literally tits out. Literal tits out. Um, and they're both just it really has the vibe like they know they're gonna die, but it really has the vibes of like they're about to do a suicide pact. Um, because they're like, we'll fly away beyond their reach. So far they can't touch us, and at last we will be nothing, nobody, each other's, only this time forever. Like it really feels like they're about to take poison or something. But then the door opens, they cover their respective shirtlessness. Um and they're separated to go be executed. And Guilford tries to hug her, but Jane is like, no, next time I see your face, I want it for eternity. And Guilford is like, as you wish. I imagine. I imagine. With his eyes. Okay, so then they sort of, yes, it all wraps up very quickly. So Dr. Feckenham comes in to see Jane, and she's like, tell me about Guilford's execution. And as he explains, like narrates what happened with Guilford, we see this similar, same things happening with Jane. So it's like she's taken through the gate, she climbs the stairs.
Because if this movie does anything, it's tell you a thing and then show you that exact same thing.
Yes, they really want to be real clear. Anyway, so but what we're seeing is Jane being taken up to be executed. So her cloak is removed. Her ladies at first thought they're gonna take off her like bodice, but instead they just like tuck her collar inside so that like beheading will work better. Mrs. Ellen, the like nanny, strokes her face fondly, and Jane is just like, ugh. Um,
I
and
never
then she
liked you.
no, you suck. And then Jane bids farewell to Dr. Feckenham, and as they embrace, she secretly gives him the silver shilling with her face on it, the commemorative coin.
Because if Jane's gonna be nice to anybody at the end, it's the Catholic.
Yep. Because they respected each other from the first scene because they both like books. Anyway, and then this is what happened in real life. So she puts on the blindfold and kneels down, but then she can't find the block. It's too far away, and she's just like, "Where is it?" And it's really sad. And everyone's
It's
like,
that one
"Mm."
painting that, like, is the most upsetting painting I've ever seen in my whole life, which is her
Yeah,
blindfolded trying to reach the block, and it's just, ugh.
yeah. It's a famous thing that happened, and everyone's just like, "Are you gonna help her?" Like everyone feels bad for her. And then Dr. Feckenham, again, at the last minute, the Catholic comes to help her. And then right before the axe comes down, she whispers, "Guildford." And then the final part of the movie is Dr. Feckenham gives the silver shilling to Mary,
At
who
which
is,
point I am shrieking alone in my home.
yeah, yeah. But she's wearing a really killer, literal, red outfit that's like red on red with like red earrings. It's red and her hair
Do
is
you get
red.
it? Do you get the metaphor?
Do you remember at the beginning of the movie, everything was white and now it's
What was
red?
the color? Was it Bloody Mary?
Yes, yes, yes. Anyway, and then she's like, actually, she's veered at this point into Mary from the Kate Blanchett movie where she's all like, I'm going to meet my husband. We're in love. You see? Like, she is now insane. Um, and the choir sings very violently. And then Mary kind of cries a little bit, then like hardens her face and walks. This movie's going to show you something. It's going to show you a character walking down a hallway. And so she
It's sad.
walks.
It's sad
Hmm?
how the true love of Francis's life isn't even born yet.
Oh, she had that other husband, right?
He, no, the sorry, not Francis Phillips. The true love of Philip's life
Oh,
isn't even born yet. But yes,
yeah.
Francis also had another husband, but he was
Francis did
born.
have another husband. Yeah. Yeah, he wasn't that young. Yeah, so Mary just kind of like walks slowly down a hallway, passing various characters who may or may not have been in the movie. I'm not sure. They're men with beards. But one of the
They're
people there is
Catholics.
oh, they're men with no beards. And so then Frances is there and she just kind of bows like, well, my scheme really didn't work. In that my whole family has now been executed, except for my
She
two
has
daughters.
two daughters.
Little Catherine. We haven't seen her in a long time. Anyway, so then it goes to Feckenham, who is in a room and he looks up at the sky and there's birds and he like reads some passage about like souls are free forever or something like that.
his dirty Catholic thoughts about
That was
And
from Plato. That was the
Jane.
same quote that Jane was reading from Plato in the
oh,
original Greek when
so
they
they
first
brought it they
met.
brought it back. Okay,
They
okay,
did.
okay. Yeah, Plato in the
It was
original
a
Greek.
callback.
And that's the end of the movie. Is
Yay!
anyone left on the live stream?
Yes, yes, there are actually people left.
Okay,
Mostly for the cats, but probably maybe a little bit for us.
okay, okay.
I tried to give a cat cameo every time she showed up for the
If
people.
Hepburn come, I'm sure she'll come in again, and I'll show you when she does. So we need to score the movie now.
Yes. We're getting applause for
Yeah, because we did
all
it.
the way through the movie.
It's always a shock to me every time when we make it through, and I'm like, we actually did it.
This
Okay,
movie, the last part of it goes really fast.
yeah.
Yeah, when
We
she's
just
arrested.
take
Okay,
our time staring at goats and fields on the way there.
important
And
sequences.
we also go on some tangents, maybe a little bit.
Every now and
We
then.
did yell about the entire Victorian era in a film that does not take place
Not
in the
enough.
Victorian era.
Cockney.
I will always yell about the Victorian era. Find any
Okay.
excuse. All right, so
Okay, Lana,
the
score
first
us.
category is cape billowing.
Well, if we're scoring solely on the basis of Patrick Stewart's width, I think we're pretty high.
I mean, we've got actual pantaloons, we've got actual capes, we've got actual capes billowing.
Capes
we have
billowing with
actual
little
pantaloons
dangly bits on
flopping.
them.
We had a little sleeping crown.
The costume work, I think, like, as it should be, I was thinking, like, this movie, like, it's filmed in England with all these costumes where they have the Tudor stuff on hand because they've filmed, like, a gazillion BBC things with the Tudors. But also they're filming on location in castles. So it all looks so authentic. Like, it
And there
gave
weren't
me the, like,
unnecessary
Shakespearean
corsets.
unnecessary corsets?
There weren't unnecessary corsets.
Oh, yeah. Actually, yeah. But like the Shakespearean actors of it all really gave me I Claudius vibes,
Except they
but
paid for the sets in
but
this
with
one.
a budget.
Yeah.
So it's like I Claudius
My
with a
Claudius was
budget.
made with $17 and a kid's arts and crafts set.
They didn't pay for the sets, they located the sets.
Exactly.
Like,
I
they didn't
Claudius was
build
just like
anything.
no, I Claudius was like cardboard boxes taped together and you could see the tape.
I want us to do the pilot of I Claudius so bad.
I think that'd be a fine choice. But
Yes.
yeah, I was like, why does this feel like I Claudius but better? I'm like, because of
Because they have
location
the
shooting.
money.
And the guy
Just
got
name
the
it.
costumes on loan from the Royal Shakespearean Company, probably on a
Right.
discount.
So I think we're trending high here, score-wise.
For the
We're
I
definitely
think
in
the
the
costumes
positive.
are good. It's interesting for me because they're very like literal actual Tudor costumes and usually I like a weird interpretation, but this was a good accurate feeling. Like the Patrick Stewart's the broadness of the furs and it wasn't just like, oh, we got this fur cloak, let's make him wear it. It's like, no, he had like 7 different fur cloaks, a different one for each mood. I like, where would you go, Allison?
I'm feeling like a 6. Because I feel like they're awesome and they're definitely positive. I'm not sure that. Yeah, I think I'm waiting for something like the hair in A Knight's Tale to like really slap me across the
I
face.
really
Like
want
amazing.
something like the unicorn hat.
Yes.
Like, there's nothing really weird and big to make me like, oh my god. Like the sleep crown was good, but that's not like. I think 6. I agree with a 6. Lana, I mean, you usually defer to us on this one.
Yeah, that one I usually defer to you. Looking back at the numbers, yeah, I would agree because like it doesn't have any of that Queen Margot like drama dresses.
It
But
was
has
very much
dresses.
like the fact the costumer has done theater. Like it very felt like this is a serviceable wardrobe for this movie. Not
Yes.
like there
And
wasn't like an artistic flair, and that's not what it was called for.
And they
But
gave me just enough little bits to make me happy, which is what I look
And
for in a costume.
the costumer had the costumes. She didn't steal the costumes from the entire country to spite someone else.
okay, sorry, chat.
Amazing.
For context, we watched the movie Tombstone last month, and the best detail about behind the scenes of that is that so they were making this movie Tombstone about Wyatt Earp, and at the same time, Kevin Costner was making a movie called Wyatt Earp at the same time.
Because he
And
was
so
mad at the way Tombstone was going.
Yeah. And so because the people making Tombstone were so mad at Kevin Costner, they rented every single old-timey West costume in like all of North America, even though they didn't need them all, just so that Kevin Costner wouldn't have any costumes. Like the petty drama of that costumer, I live. I live.
It was a thing of beauty.
Kevin Costner had to get costumes from Europe or something. Like it was anyway, he was very inconvenienced. That's how you get high scores in costuming.
It is.
Actually, it wasn't how you didn't actually get
Okay.
high scores, but that's okay.
That could be a way.
But that's how you get bonus points in costuming. Is
that's how you just get our tip of the hat.
True pettiness. All right, so I'm gonna go with 6. I think 6 is very fair.
6 is fair. Yeah,
you two are like on board with that. Work, which is harder because
they were all just British. Like I think they're all
going
English.
to give points in this category. I think we have to give points for the delivery of the line "popery."
If there's any positive points, it is in the word "popery."
Yeah,
but the score has also. I just want to remind everyone the score also falls under accent work if it is mentioned more than once by you two.
I'm sorry, by score, do you mean these 5 notes?
Like, I want to just point out that like that is a thing that falls under accent work when you start noticing it.
I'm so sorry to the person who, I'm sorry to this man, but like you played 5 notes over and over for 2 hours and 20 minutes. To the point, although when I was watching it, I was like, oh my god, is it Mina? Oh my god, she's being so cute in a box.
Giant box. So I thought people might like to see.
Oh my god, that's so cute.
This is what the people are here to see.
I know what the people want.
It is 50% of the people. Hepburn's just waiting for a big finale moment, I'm sure. Yeah, the score was ridiculous. Like I was watching it, I was like, at first I'm like, oh, this is so weird. I haven't watched this in like 20 years, but I remember the score. It's like, oh, it's just 5 notes. Oh, I remember the score because it's just 5 notes. I give the score -5. And I give Popery +5, which averages out to 0.
I think that's fair and balanced.
I especially think it's fair because it like they didn't do anything special. They were like that is absolutely Carrie Elway's accent. Yeah. That's just Helena Bonham Carter.
They just hired a bunch of English people and they just spoke with English accents.
But we do have to give a special little award to Popery Man for making my whole week.
A tip of the hat.
Yeah.
It's a shame
outstanding performance in Popery.
Stole it from him.
I want to say I do think I am going to make, even just for lulz, maybe just a sticker that says like Papa D's Popery. Just a little sticker. And only people who attended this live stream will understand it. But I will buy one for myself.
Private look club.
Yeah.
All right, so then we're putting a 0 in for accent work, which I think sounds like we all agree to. So
yeah,
it's on to Anne's feature, historical audacity.
Okay, here's I'm of 2 minds. So first of all, historical audacity positive. I love when something's historically audacious in a way that is enjoyable. Like for instance, you might have heard of the TV show Rain. Is they take a story and they do a bunch of weird shit with it to the purpose of making it enjoyable. A Knight's Tale also took history. Like I'm not like that's why it's audacity. We're not just like was this movie accurate? So how audacious was it, and was it good or bad in the sense that they took a series of events that happened and made it into a story. And the story was one that I found moving. There was the love story between 2 nerds trauma bonding over their like love of Plato and prison abolition.
Progressive politics.
To overlay that over the story of Jane Grey is, I think, fairly audacious, actually. To have Robert Dudley, like to have people who are like known in history as just like side characters that aren't anything like what they're known as, and to take Mary the First and make her be like, Philip, I'll do anything.
Philip, he's so handsome. I love him.
He is entirely mentally stable. This is fine.
this is gonna work out great. The country is amazingly well, even the
At
fact that
no
the way
point
that
will I cry.
well, like, when Mary came into town and everyone's like, "Yay, that we have a queen now and she's Catholic and she's marrying a Spanish person," I'm like, is the crowd happy?" Which is
Where did you buy this crowd from? Are these vagrants you've given many dollars to?
so I do think it was very audacious to take and I respect it. Like, I don't come to a movie like this wanting to be like, "Could you please show me, like, a series of events as they happen in history?" It's like, no, like, a documentary could do that, a biography could do that. This is taking inspiration, like and they hit the main things about Jane Grey, I think, which is, like, she was the queen for 9 days, like, her parents were shitty. Um, she, like, was abused, like, they had to force her to marry Guildford. She was an asshole. Like, they took those things and then added stuff to it in, I would posit, a positive way. Like, it didn't get into, like and Mr. Mistopheles was there, like, it didn't get into, like, real Knight's Tale level goofiness. So I would say historical audacity 5, 6. That's where I would go.
I support that.
Yeah, that puts it in Tombstone Queen Margot range.
It's fair. I think
It
that's
is one
it.
of our
Like
higher scores.
this movie is like
There's nothing about this movie that made, I think, any of us not well.
Like they didn't have a lot to work with.
yeah,
Like it was 9 days. She really wasn't doing anything,
yeah.
and he wasn't really doing anything because he was just a dick. But
Well, no, exactly, exactly. Oh, is Mina doing something cute?
She made it
Oh
in
my
the
god, she got
box.
in
It
the
took her
box.
very long
Oh my
time.
god. Oh my god.
just took
Great,
her a
great
while.
work.
So yeah,
Yeah,
Proud of you, girl.
I think they definitely made a story out of it that was entertaining. It was a little bit weird, but I think I'm cool with a 5. Like I don't know if
Done.
I don't know if it earned a 6 for me.
yeah.
Just
I
because
think it's like
it did good things, but it also like it played too much into the mythos of the martyr queen of that she was so amazing and there was so many things we could have had because this is not my sliding glass doors moment. My sliding glass doors moment is later.
and we're gonna talk about that, like as a teaser in the Mary Queen of Scots season. Chat,
Actually,
listeners.
in the Catherine de Medici episode.
Which I think is gonna be like 3 to 4 episodes.
God, it might be twice as long as this. We don't know.
Yeah, no, I like how you phrase that, Lana, because it's kind of like in Rain. So they were like, okay, here's the story of Mary Queen of Scots, but like the time she spent in France, it's like we don't know a lot about what happened there, so we can put a story there. Like we can make there be stuff that happened because there's wiggle room. With Jane Grey, it's like she was queen for 9 days and there wasn't time for anything to happen, but they're like, how can we make that be a story? And I think they made a good choice to be like, well, let's just
Yeah.
let's just make this be a love story. That's not what it was, but our movie is that and it makes her very sympathetic and yeah, I think I'm totally
I mean,
comfortable with the 5.
it shows their bias. It shows their bias, and like it made a good movie, but it's like there are some very strong historical revisionist vibes to it that have a
What I
political
would
agenda.
say yeah, well, no, but I would say that, like, I'm comfortable with 5, like, mark that in. But, like,
Yeah,
it is audacious that they made her be, like, so resolutely Protestant and, like, the Catholic Protestant divide seems so extreme, and then at the
and it just
end to
goes away.
have and then, like, Dr. Feckenham is the one who's, like, consoling her at the end, and, like yeah, I don't know, it's
And that
they
was
kinda,
part of the
like
historical record, so they kind of had to include that bit.
yeah, but it's like they're kinda, like, sometimes took it seriously and sometimes didn't.
Yeah. All right, so we're on to vibes.
How were the vibes? I know
Like,
Lana's vote.
They were plotting.
the vibe
My vibes were -10, but I'm not going to push that agenda because trauma response.
the vibes are like, if this had been an hour 45,
Yeah, if this had been a cool 98 minutes, it would have been great.
but the vibes are dragged down by all the scenes of people entering and exiting buildings. Every time like, you think you're going, and then it's like, "Oh, let's just, like, watch a boat
Yep.
for 5 minutes."
I think the
I
vibes are, for me, overall positive, but not as positive as they could have been if we had
Yeah,
had some film editing involved and, like, a composer for the score.
yeah. Like,
or
there's
score at all.
vibes there's vibes potential. Like, Carrie
Yeah.
Elways and Helena Bonham Carter and Patrick Stewart, the
They've got the
Francis
vibes. Those
versus like,
Mhm.
they're delivering fantastic performances. Like,
Yes.
Papa D is, like, doing what he came there to do. But they're just in this
Snotty
movie that's got
Robert Dudley.
it's just like it could have I don't know, I really think editing could have improved the vibes, but the vibes that were there were just, like, tamped down
Yeah.
by all the bloat. So I would say vibes 2.
I'd support that. I was thinking 3. I think 2 is fair.
I support
I just
2.
really enjoyed yelling potpourri while we were watching this. I thought that was great.
There's certainly moments, like, with Carrie Elways and the goat, like, there are great moments, but then it's
Yeah.
just, like, there's so much
Un-
excess.
but they weren't necessary moments. So that puts it between the affair of the necklace and the Girl King plus Peter Dinklage, Cyrano, at a
I
2.
think that's where it fits. I
And
think
so
it's
the
on par with The Girl King, like, I
It
could see
reminds
that.
me of The Girl King in a lot
so
Yeah.
in a lot
yeah,
of
the
yeah.
overall score places it just below Queen Margot and just above Anastasia. So Queen Margot was an 18. This is a 13. The total score was 13.
Can you tell everybody what the Knight's Tale got?
Knight's Tale is an untouchable 33. Les Mis is an impressive negative 15. The only other thing that got a negative score was Peter Dinklage's Cyrano. And then yeah, it did not it broke the top 5. Yeah, it broke the
Not
top
bad.
5.
Anything that ends in the positive numbers, we
Yeah.
overall had a pleasant experience.
But, yeah, I think if it's, like yeah, like, negatives, it's, like, at least that's fun to talk about, and
Yes.
positive, that's fun but the ones that are kinda, like, below this, is kinda like it's always fun to talk, but it's just kinda like if the movie is just like Cyrano, where it's just kinda like, there's nothing here. Like, this
Yeah.
movie is just, like, beige. The songs are beige. Everything is like, it's just, like tragically, because that also had vibes potential, but
Such potential.
It beats
wait,
our overall average of 11.3.
the guy from Cyrano's Dinklage is the one who's playing the Chevalier St. George in the movie Chevalier, and he was good. So I think
He couldn't
Redemption. It's
really sing, but I don't
redemption.
think he has to sing in this movie, so that's okay.
Notice plays the violin or fake playing violin. I think he'll be good.
That's fine, just act.
Yeah. So the next movie we're going to be doing is Corsage, the CC movie, which I'm really excited to watch and I hope is good. But I hear a couple Tits Up Brigade people have told me that it's good and also weird, which bodes
It's
well.
weird, which is like my vibe. I love weird stuff, and
But
I
that's
love
also Cece's
Cece.
vibe. Like, there's so many
And
like Cece movies that are like, oh, she's so pretty, and like, look at her like high spirited manic pixie dream girl, and this is like very much not that, which is
there's like full on weird
accurate.
horse girl scenes. There's like, and that's in the trailer. Like the trailer gives me weird horse girl scenes, and she like has her full on breakdown, and she like, I I have to fully admit, if you haven't listened to the Cece episodes, she is my problematic fave. Like she makes choices and she doesn't make good choices, but she makes them. And
And
I
she
love her.
also kind of like Jane Grey, in the movie Asterix movie Jane Grey. Cece like did strive to improve conditions for people.
Like I honestly believe that um CC created the framework by which uh Sigmund Freud was able to become who he was. And if it hadn't been for her bringing all of those mental health proto mental health practitioners to Austria-Hungary, we would not have mental health today. Not in the way it is. So, like, for good or bad, I have my own stuff with that, but like that we even are trying at all is a lot of that is to do with CC.
And that's part of why, and we talked about this in the episode a lot, but like the fact that she's remembered for being like, did you know her waist was really small and her hair was really long? It's like, yes,
And
and
they write
also other
freaking
things.
love stories about her. Like, no, those two were not in love. I mean, he was, but they weren't in love with each other.
It's yeah, the Jack Gems book is so good in that regard of just like allowing her levels and interest and not just being like, did you know her hair was long? Like, yeah.
She was very skinny.
What was she? Oh my god. Um
She speaks
okay.
Hungarian.
So we've been here for 3 hours and 25 minutes. Although Asterix, we didn't start right at 7. So I just want to say, I don't know if any chat people have any questions or final thoughts. Like we could like do a little wrap up thing because I feel
Yeah,
like
if
if they've been
anybody,
here with us,
if anybody,
if anyone's
Q&A.
left,
Oh no, there's still people here.
okay, okay.
They very much want the sticker, the potpourri sticker.
Papa D's potpourri.
Yes.
Oh, I'm doing it. I want to be like, I'm imagining, and I'm not an artist, but I'm imagining like Papa D's potpourri. It looks like a label, and then at the bottom it can say like with added Catholics or something.
With
Now,
added conjurers of Rome.
May
prepared
contain
by the
conjurers of Rome.
prepared by the finest conjurers of Rome.
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay. Somebody asked who had the best mustache, and my answer for that is Kurt Russell and Wyatt Earp.
Oh, and Tombstone?
No, I think they were talking about this movie.
Oh, but there wasn't mustaches in this movie. There's just
There
one
weren't any
mustache guy.
mustaches.
It was just beards.
It was all beards. Beards.
None of the facial hair in this movie jumped out at me as delightful. None of it was character building facial hair.
It was all just
Unlike
serviceable.
Tombstone, which I
Like
had to
Tombstone.
call people and tell them, "Have you ever seen this movie with this incredible mustache?"
The Tombstone mustaches were basically sentient characters. Like those
Yeah.
mustaches were
Anywhere
like
Sam
for
Elliott's
them.
mustache is. Anywhere Sam Elliott's mustache is
Yeah,
a good place.
that's how I was going to win
He
the
just
mustache.
won
Yeah.
an award too.
Sam Elliott?
Yeah.
Did he do something?
I think he won the Screen Actors Guild for
What movie is he in?
He's in one of the Yellowstones. With the
Oh,
Yellowstone
of course he's in a Yellowstone.
the boy soap operas.
No, but like, it's like a Wild West themed show set in any decade ever. Like, of course Sam Elliott's in it. Like, that's what he does.
He's the best. All right.
Any other chat?
Why were there people behind the beheading podium? Did they expect coins to fall down as the head rolls?
That's a great question. Because at the end of this movie, or no, it was at the beginning when there was the beheading, the Good Duke. Yeah, there was like guys. So like where the platform was, where they're cutting off his head, and then there was like some like fingerless gloves vibes, zombie types, underneath where the head was gonna go.
And they would try to rob the body afterwards sometimes.
But like, what would be on the body? Like, why would he be executed with like anything on it? Jane did have a coin, but I don't think that's normal. I don't know. The head. Why do they want the head? Are they gonna like sell it?
Was this the time when you could sell bodies to
Meat?
doctors for
I don't think
anatomy
so.
things?
That's
that
later.
Okay.
We don't even have John D yet.
We're getting close though.
We're getting close. We're coming up on John D.
That was a weird thing that they did specifically show, and I just kind of thought, I'm just like, oh, okay, I guess that's the thing they did in oldie times.
And I have read about that, but I can't.
We
remember,
don't know.
What the
The answer is if anyone knew, it would be Allison, and Allison did not know.
And I gave my answer, and you said I want more details, and I said I don't have more details.
Now I need to look up John D again.
Oh, my crazy
The language of birds.
Son of a bitch. I love him.
Who are you talking about?
John D was Queen Elizabeth's personal astrologer.
Oh.
He also spent a lot of time trying to talk to angels. He's very cool. Fully unhinged. No hinges left.
No, that's good. And I feel like
excellent beard.
He was the very first edition of Dirtbags Through the Ages that I ever wrote was John D talking to angels. So
I need to read those archived ones. You just did one about a pope?
I did. Pope John the 12th. Teen Pope.
The cool teen pope.
Horny teen pope, mostly.
Yeah. Okay, so if there's not any further
Nope,
chattisms, I
nothing
think
else.
personally I'm going to bed. But
Same. This is so far past my bedtime, and the light is still on. What you all don't know is that about an hour and a half in, I typically turn my light off.
And we just
And then
speak to the void where Lana's voice emerges from. Yeah.
yeah.
then
Wait,
it
But
is only
I'm
darkness.
I'm
I'm
gonna
so
go
delighted that people are still here and that you
I'm del
came at all to this. Thank you.
honestly,
It's really
Someone
nice.
actually very recently joined, which is like a level of
aw,
confidence in our ability to continue talking
I
that I
know.
am impressed by.
you're here for the most unhinged, wild part of this whole situation. Honestly, I was like, "Okay, A, am I gonna make the live stream work?" And, like, I kind of did, but not really. Um, but then B, I was like, "There's gonna be at least 5 people here," I thought to myself. As long as there's 5 people, and there's more. So,
Please, anybody impressed?
what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna run and grab Hepburn and make her make an appearance
Okay,
because
Yes. Good,
you
good.
do
We
that.
have
she's
waited
just
all
been
this time.
like
And
I
then
know, and but, you know, I
Allison's
don't
gonna
wanna
pitch her books.
Am I?
yeah,
Yeah.
I
you guys
will if you will.
talk about your books.
Okay. I will if you will, but you definitely have to after this.
Okay. Yeah. If you're interested in Tudor nonsense and popery, my book is called A Tip for the Hangman. It's about the spy career of Christopher Marlowe, and there's lots of popery involved. Um, I have another book coming out in October called Let the Dead Bury the Dead, which is Slavic folklore inspired alternate history about an imagined Russian Revolution right after the Napoleonic Wars, so that I could yell about Napoleon for 350 pages and my editor would let me get away with it. Hello, Hepburn baby.
Hello, Hepburn.
No baby. She's so good.
She's the goodest girl. All right, well, my turn. I have two young adult contemporary books out. I actually have them right here, so I'm gonna show off my covers. I write things that are not anything like this. I wrote Technically You Started It, which is about two nerds falling in love entirely through text messages.
And it's
Which is
based on the
sort
return
of
of Martin
relevant
Gar.
to this film.
It is it
Two
is sort
nerds.
of relevant. There's very romance heavy and they're very nerdy and the main character has very many opinions. And then my second book was Speak for Yourself, and it is about another girl with very many opinions and some more texting, but I actually put paragraphs in this one and I gave them faces and I'm very proud of that. It's about a girl that wants to go famous for having created a study app. So she convinces all of her friends to join an academic decathlon team. Well, not really academic, like an academic competition team. And they have very strong opinions about the Gilded Age. Sorry, that just fell out of my head. So, Victorians. And she accidentally makes a dating app for the debate club and it goes viral. So it is a Cyrano retelling focusing on the team and war side, not the talking and romance side, but there is also that. So
I think that and I mean just inherently because those are books written by you and you have explained part of what you were like as a young person, not just wearing clown makeup, but
this is not my clown makeup era.
but like relating to Jane Grey, to Jane Eyre. So I think that the nerd girl characters in your books have a bit of a Jane Grey type vibe as well to
This is
them, where they're
true.
just like, I know what's right for everybody, and well, especially the second book, but
Especially
just
the
like
second
I
book.
have opinions and they're all correct, and that's what's happening. Yeah, Jane Grey
And her
energy.
family plots against her. But in good ways, not in bad ways.
hmm and I have a podcast called Vulgar History.
If you don't know that and you somehow made it here, proud of you.
Yeah. The new season is starting on Wednesday, which is also International Women's Day. And this is oh yeah. So anyway, the new season starts. It's gonna be there's something about Mary Queen of Scots. And there's gonna be so many episodes. Allison's gonna be appearing. I mean, I'll tell you, because we're all friends here. Like Allison's gonna be in like the Darnley episode. Allison's gonna be there for
His favorite
Bothwell.
man. my other least favorite
Allison's
man.
gonna be there to talk about Mary Queen of Scots and her, like, spy code era. Lana's gonna be joining me for, like, Catherine de Medici, for Marie de Guise, like, for that side of the non-Scotland stuff.
The early stuff, and why anybody that thinks that Mary is a sweet little victim does not know anything about French history.
Mm.
Yeah, so it's fun. I'm looking forward to it. It'll be exciting, I think. And I forget, did we talk about that? Oh yeah, I forget if it was before people were here. But anyway, so I've been posting TikToks as well for Women's History Month that are chaotic and with the energy of a drive-by pie being thrown in your face. 15 seconds about various women that I've talked of whom I've talked about on the podcast. Anyway, that's a thing I'm doing.
There's
Much excitement for the new season.
There should be. It's gonna be amazing.
I'm really excited about it. I hope yeah, it's been
we
long
can
in the
talk.
works.
That's like
Oh
a
my
whole
God.
hour in and of itself.
Oh my God. And here's the thing.
Realize that.
Is that the Tits Out Brigade in some ways kind of I feel like
Your flying squadron?
I could use them like a flying squadron to just sort of like deploy and like do things. What was the thing the Tits Out Brigade did?
Didn't you get the Fredigan book to win a Goodreads Choice Award?
No, but it was a finalist. I got that book into the top 5. Yeah. That was the
Right.
Tits Out
We
Brigade.
had 56 views on this. 29 live.
Aw.
So there's people like actively watching it right now.
Hi friends.
Thank you all.
Anyway, yeah, the new season's gonna be exciting. Perhaps one day we will do another live stream, but who knows? Thank you both
You
for
gotta-
doing this.
You got to get her to 3 million, and then we'll do
That's
more.
the thing. Oh, that's the other thing. Yeah, it's the 100 episodes celebration, which I do want to say to those of you listening, like Lana and I, we told the origin story of the podcast, which was just I was like, okay, I'll do a podcast, basically. And then I don't think I would still have been doing the podcast if not for the Tits Up Brigade, who are very enthusiastic and have so many good ideas of people to talk about and help me answer questions and send me shit sometimes. I was going to show you, but I don't have it here.
All the way to Canada.
Yeah, someone went to the Tower of London and they sent me some souvenirs from the Tower of London,
Aw,
including Queen Elizabeth ceremonial coin, tie into this. I know, for coin minting moment. That was exciting. Anyway, so I appreciate the Tissa Brigade. I'm happy to have done this celebration for you, and the new season's going to be amazing, and it's going to go until like the end of July because I talk a lot because there's a lot to talk about. So, yeah. Okay, I don't know how to end this, but we'll see what happens. I think I'll stop the live stream, and then maybe I'll stop the call, or maybe it's all going to end at once. But like, thank you both in case we are stopped.
goodbye in case we disappear.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.